Chapter 288. A group of Wu family disciples who didn't know what was going on looked at each other in shock after hearing this. The Wu family swallowed other people's auction spirit stones? And even killed them? Everyone's face was full of disbelief. The Wu family relied on credibility. How could they destroy their own foundation? Everyone looked at the family master, Wu Sihai. Under everyone's gaze, Wu Sihai was quite ashamed, and he didn't know what to say for a while. Because only he understood what Yu Qianqiu meant by being ungrateful. They took the risk to bring him to the demon domain to find the old ancestor, but he left them behind. This was already ungrateful. Now he wanted to kill them. Although Yu Qianqiu mistakenly thought that it was killing them and swallowing their spirit stones, if this wasn't ungrateful, then what was? In fact, he didn't know Yu Qianqiu's character. Yu Qianqiu naturally knew that it wasn't killing them and swallowing their spirit stones. It was purely a matter caused by a disagreement between him and Wu Zhenggang. However, things had come to this point, and he couldn't take advantage of it by force, so he had to take advantage of it with his mouth. If he didn't ruthlessly bite the opponent a few times and cause some trouble for the opponent, then he wouldn't be Yu Qianqiu. This had something to do with his previous life when he started as a gangster and became an underworld boss. Some of the habits of a gangster would be revealed from time to time. After the three old men standing in the air heard this, their expressions immediately became very serious. The old man in the middle stared down and shouted, "Wu Sihai, is what he said true?" Before Wu Sihai spoke, Wu Zhengang hurriedly expressed his position. "Three family elders, don't listen to this kid's nonsense." What a joke. Yu Qianqiu's words were targeting him. If the three family elders really misunderstood that he had swallowed someone's spirit stones and wanted to kill them, then the three family elders would definitely kill him. He couldn't help but be anxious. "Yu Qianqiu, you misunderstood. If you have something to say, we can talk about it." "You really misunderstood." Wu Sihai smiled bitterly. "Humph." Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. "Misunderstanding? If I didn't have some skills, Wu Zhenggang's sword would have killed me. At that time, I'm afraid I won't be able to hear you misunderstand again. Today's enmity has been sown, and there will be plenty of time in the future to settle it slowly. I hope your Wu clan can play with me." "Humph. Goodbye. I won't be accompanying you any longer." With that said, he directly fell through the hole in the roof. "Young man, it's not too late to leave after clarifying the situation," the old man in the middle of the sky shouted in a deep voice. He stretched out his 5 claws, and a 1-meter square shadow appeared in the sky. The shadow took the shape of a claw and clawed down along with the receding green flames in the hole in the roof. F***CK. Yu Qianqiu, who had yet to land on the ground after falling into the house, heard the noise above him. He looked up and immediately let out a strange cry. An illusory 5 claws were not afraid of the blue fire and directly clawed at him. This was the final stage of the crossing tribulation. Not daring to hesitate any longer, he disappeared along with a ball of green flames. "Eee!" The 3 old men exclaimed at the same time. Their divine senses had already locked onto Yu Qianqiu when he fell into the house, but the target suddenly disappeared. How could this be possible? The 3 of them immediately teleported and appeared in the burnt ancestral hall. The inside was scorched black, and the 4 walls and roof were on the verge of collapse. However, it was empty, and they couldn't see anyone. The 3 of them looked at each other in disbelief. Wu Sihai and the elders of the Elder Council, "Stay behind. The rest of you, disperse." A voice came from the ancestral hall that was on the verge of collapse, and the 3 clan elders walked out with gloomy expressions. All the Wu clan's descendants bowed and dispersed. Wu Sihai and the group of elders quickly walked to the front of the clan elders and bowed. The leading clan elder said in a deep voice, "He actually escaped. This is really strange. Wu Sihai, let me ask you, this young man has such a big tone. Who exactly is he? Also, is what he said true?" 3 late-stage Tribulation Transcendence cultivators actually couldn't catch Yu Qianqiu? Everyone couldn't help but think of a legend. It was said that in the past, when Ong Guangceng was in the late stage of Tribulation Transcendence, ancestor Qing Fu chased after Yu Qianqiu. In the end, Yu Qianqiu also escaped. After the incident, many people didn't believe it. How could a late-stage Tribulation Transcendence cultivator be unable to catch a small core formation cultivator? Now, it seemed that it was really possible. This Yu Qianqiu must have cultivated some kind of escape technique. Everyone looked at the three clan elders in dismay. The three clan elders were called Wu Zhen, Wu Bao, and Wu Rui. They were the only three Tribulation Transcendence cultivators in the Wu clan. Among them, Wu Zhen was the most senior. This matter should have been reported to the three clan elders earlier. However, the clan elders were in a critical moment of seclusion and didn't dare to carelessly disturb them. The matter was like this. Wu Sihai didn't dare to hide anything from the three of them. He immediately told them the whole story honestly. From Yu Qianqiu's birth in Ongquang-tsung, to supporting Immortal Island, to befriending Wu Liqing and the others, to the series of events that happened. Even the hidden forces behind Yu Qianqiu and his group weren't omitted. Especially when he learned about Bai Chongqun's information and how he brought the four major clans' patriarchs to the Demon Ghost region to find Bai Chongqun, he respectfully narrated everything. Finally, the incident that happened in the Wu clan's ancestral hall was described in great detail. Everyone's heart was pounding. Oh my God! How did we provoke such a person? Meanwhile, Wu Zhenggong's face had already turned green. It would be strange if he didn't regret it. When he recalled that the other party wanted to take his head, he was extremely regretful. Ancestor is actually still in this world. Ancestor's cultivation has already reached the soul formation stage. Ancestor is actually the ruler of the Demon Ghost region. Unbelievable. It's simply unbelievable. The three clan elders were indescribably excited and spoke incoherently. For the three of them, their cultivation was about to face an insurmountable bottleneck. If they couldn't cross it, they would die of old age. Now that there was an ancestor who had crossed that bottleneck, they could ask for guidance. The three of them were instantly filled with confidence. We should immediately pay our respects to Ancestor, Wu Rui said excitedly. Wu Bao also nodded excitedly, but Wu Zhen calmed down and asked with a frown, Sihai, are you saying that Ancestor doesn't want us to look for him again? Wu Sihai nodded and took out the spiritual treasure sword from his storage bag. He held it with both hands and said, I don't dare to hide it from the three clan elders. It is precisely because many people in the four clans want to set up their own clans, and the one who set up the rule of mutual support was Ancestor. After learning from Yu Qianqiu that Ancestor is still in this world, I spent a lot of effort to ask Yu Qianqiu to take the four of us to the Demon Ghost region to meet Ancestor and ask him for his opinion. When he learned that our descendants had disobeyed his original intention, he was extremely angry. However, he did not want to meddle in the affairs of the world anymore, so he bestowed 4 low-level flying swords to the 4 heads of our families, and asked us to deal with the disciples who wanted to split the 4 families. He also told us not to disturb him again, or else he wouldn't let us off easily. Wu Sihai was able to sit on the position of Wu clan's clan master, so he was naturally not a simple character. He used the ancestor as a gimmick to say what he wanted to say. In fact, after the 4 of them met Bai Chongqun, they didn't say much, and Bai Chongqun didn't want to talk nonsense with them. This was just what the 4 clan masters had discussed on the way back. This is the legendary spiritual treasure? Wu Zhen reached out to grab it in surprise, but then he paused and asked, since Ancestor's spiritual treasure is given to the clan master, it is not appropriate for others to treat it lightly. Sihai. Can I have a look at this legendary treasure? Wu Sihai immediately raised the sword in his hand to receive it. Wu Zhen looked at the 2 people beside him and laughed. Then I will be thick-skinned and take a look at the spiritual treasure given by Ancestor. As he spoke, his expression became solemn. He took the sword with both hands and examined it carefully for a while. Then he held the hilt with one hand and slowly pulled it out. The treasured sword, which was as clear as the autumn waters, emitted a pleasant sound as it was pulled out. Good sword. Wu Bao, Wu Rui, and Wu Zhen praised. The other elders had already seen Wu Sihai use it. Although they weren't very surprised, they couldn't help but be amazed. After seeing it, Wu Zhen injected his divine sense to examine it. Suddenly, he frowned and looked at Wu Sihai suspiciously. Is this really a spiritual treasure? Why do I feel that it only has the power of a middle-grade magic treasure? Wu Sihai smiled bitterly and bowed. Clan Master, you may not know this, but Ancestor asked us, the 4 clan masters, to pass on the ancestral teachings of supporting each other to the next generation. He also used our blood to plant a blood curse on the sword. As for what the blood curse is, I don't know either. He said that people who aren't our blood relatives can't use the power of this spiritual treasure. He wanted us to pass the spiritual treasure and the position of clan master to our blood relatives. Sigh. It's really hard for me to say this. Bai Chongchun might have meant that at that time, but he definitely didn't say such straightforward words. Wu Sihai could be said to have used Bai Chongchun greatly. As soon as Wu Sihai said this, Wu Zhengang and some people's expressions changed. They opened their mouths to speak but didn't dare to. Wu Bao, one of the clan masters, also frowned deeply. Wu Zhan and Wu Rue exchanged glances. Wu Zhan put the sword back into the scabbard and said, "Since Ancestor said this, you're just telling the truth. There's nothing hard to say." Wu Sihai, "I wonder if I can have a look at this spiritual treasure?" Wu Bao asked. Wu Sihai immediately said respectfully, "Clan Master, please feel free to have a look." Wu Zhan expressionlessly handed the sword to Wu Bao. Wu Bao pulled out the sword and fiddled with it for a long time. He frowned and said, "This sword is really a spiritual treasure? This is clearly a middle-grade magic treasure." Wu Sihai, "Did you remember Ancestor's words correctly? Blood curse? This is the first time I've heard of it. Why don't you show us this spiritual treasure?" "Yes, Clan Master." Wu Sihai received the sword with a solemn expression. As soon as he inserted his divine sense into the sword after pulling it out, the sword let out a light dragon's roar. A circle of light rippled on the clear body of the sword. Then, a majestic murderous aura rose. The surrounding people felt their hearts and minds ripple. The murderous aura made it hard for them to breathe. Even Wu Zhan and the other two felt uneasy, as if they wanted to surrender to this sword. The sword already had such an aura before it even moved. What would happen if it was really used? Quickly put the sword away. Seeing that Wu Sihai had already raised the sword and was looking for a target to test it on, and that the light on the sword was getting brighter, Wu Zhan hurriedly stopped him. Wu Sihai was stunned. He did as he was told and put the sword away. "I'm afraid it'll attract trouble if outsiders see it. There's no need to test it. This sword is undoubtedly a spiritual treasure. Just this aura alone is incomparable to a top-grade magic treasure." Wu Zhen looked at Wu Bao in admiration. The latter frowned and nodded. "It's a magic treasure in our hands, but it's a spiritual treasure in your hands. The great ancestor is indeed powerful. He can actually cast a magical spell like the blood curse." "Of course. How can the great ancestor be compared to ordinary people?" Wu Rue laughed. Wu Zhan said with a little regret, "Sihai, what did the great ancestor say? Can you repeat it in detail? Can't we even pay our respects to him?" Wu Sihai put the sword back into his storage pouch and said respectfully, "Before the four of us left, the ancestor's original words were like this: there is no such thing as an everlasting clan in this world. This is the only thing I can do. You guys better understand it yourselves. All right, go back. No matter what happens in the future, don't come looking for me again. Otherwise, I won't let you off easily." What he said was exactly what he said. He didn't edit or embellish anything. The three of them pondered over the meaning in his words. They looked at each other and felt that it was a pity. Wu Sihai glanced at Wu Zhengang and said, "Three elders, if we can find someone to help us, maybe we can ask for a chance to meet the great ancestor." "Who?" the three of them asked in unison. "It's Yu Qianqiu who was forced to leave by us just now." Wu Sihai saw that the three of them didn't understand, so he immediately explained, "When we met the great ancestor, he was the one who found Ghost General Meng Yan and Demon King Aoli to bring us there. After meeting the great ancestor, Yu Qianqiu and the great ancestor got along very well. He wanted to leave with us but was forcefully detained by the great ancestor. Since he could meet him this time, he must have a good relationship with the great ancestor. The great ancestor let him come back. Otherwise, how could he escape from the great ancestor's hands? I wanted to ask him again to see if I could ask him to help me. I wanted to ask the ancestor to give us a chance to visit him after a while. However, I didn't expect something like this to happen, and I ended up having a bad relationship with him. However, he has a good relationship with Li Cheng. If we can find him and ask Li Cheng to help us, there might be a chance to save the situation." Hearing this, Wu Zhan and the other two, who had been blinded by the great ancestor's matter, immediately remembered that Yu Qianqiu's matter had not been dealt with. In addition to the possibility that Wu Sihai mentioned, The three of them immediately turned to look at the culprit, Wu Zhengang. Chapter 289. The three elders, Wu Zhan and Wu Rui, were the ones who adhered to the ancestral teachings. Wu Bao, on the other hand, hoped that the four major clans wouldn't interfere with each other. In the end, it was a struggle for benefits. Regardless of who was right or wrong, the conservatives still had the advantage in numbers. Facing the three elders' furious eyes, Wu Zhengang panicked and retorted to Wu Sihai. "Clan head, since Yu Qianchou has such a background, why didn't you tell me earlier? If I knew, this wouldn't have happened." Wu Sihai shook his head and sighed. "I already told you before. There are some things you aren't clear about. I will discuss it with you in detail later, but you just wouldn't listen and insisted. Today? Why didn't you tell the Elder Council about Yu Qianchou?" Wu Zhengang was a little anxious. "Do you really want me to say it so clearly?" Wu Sihai stared at him and spoke without any expression. The rule of the four major clans supporting each other was set by the old ancestor. However, a group of people led by Yu wanted the Wu clan to establish their own clan. If someone knew that the old ancestor is still alive, I'm afraid someone would think of a way to stop me from meeting the old ancestor. The meaning behind these words couldn't be any clearer. It was to prevent Wu Zhenggang's group from causing trouble. Wu Zhengang repeated "you" a few times and was so angry that he couldn't speak. The atmosphere was a little awkward as the clan head and grand elder started to argue in front of everyone. Wu Bao, who was frowning, suddenly spoke. "Since the old ancestor has instructed again, from today onwards, the Wu clan must not have any thoughts of separating from the four major clans." Wu Zhengang, do you remember this? Wu Zhan and Wu Rui exchanged glances. They both understood that Wu Bao was the one supporting Wu Zhengang from behind. Otherwise, how would an elder dare to go against the clan head? The matter that was supposed to be investigated was easily resolved by Wu Bao's words. Wu Zhengang was saved. Wu Zhengang naturally understood and had a joyful expression. He bowed and said, "Zhengang understands. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. However, some things still need to be salvaged." Wu Zhan's gaze landed on the ruined Wu clan's ancestral hall. He frowned and said, "Sihai, find Yu Qianchou as soon as possible. Return the spirit stones that were auctioned to him. Our Wu clan can't afford to kill him for embezzling the spirit stones. After we find Yu Qianchou, whoever offended him will have to make amends." Wu Zhengang bowed and said, "Clan elder, the ancestral shrine was destroyed, and an elder and a few disciples were killed. Yu Qianchou should be the one apologizing. Do you have the ability to get him to apologize to my Wu clan?" Wu Zhan coldly spat out these words and flew away. Wu Rui also let out a sneer and flew away. The meaning behind his words was obvious. "Even we can't catch him, so how can you?" Wu Bao frowned and said, "Wu Zhengang, the Wu clan has a clan head. Everything will be done according to the clan head's wishes." After saying that, he also left. Wu Zhengang was stunned. Wu Sihai took a glance at him and immediately made some arrangements. After that, they went back to their respective places. Wu Lixue, who was lying on the couch in the quiet guest house, also noticed the green phenomenon in the sky outside the window. With her temper, she should have gone to watch the show. However, she noticed that some places were destroyed by Yu Qianchou, and it was inconvenient for her to move around. When she saw that something happened in the direction of the ancestral shrine, she immediately thought that Yu Qianchou went to look for her grandfather. In addition, she waited for a long time, but he didn't come back. She was a little anxious. Due to her body condition, it wasn't convenient for her to meet people. Thus, she clenched her teeth and sneaked back home to inquire about the news. Wu Sihai and the rest of the clan were all there, and they were still talking about Yu Qianchou. Wu Sihai was a little worried. He didn't know how Yu Qianchou would take revenge on the Wu clan. In any case, he had left behind some harsh words. As the Wu clan head, he had to be responsible for the clan. He didn't know where Yu Qianchou went. He sent people to look for him, but they couldn't find him. It was as if he really disappeared from the Wu clan's territory. This incident confirmed his judgment again. Yu Qianchou would be a source of trouble no matter where he went. It was very likely that something would happen if he was around. Actually, after interacting with him, he felt that Yu Qianchou wasn't a bad person. He was easy to talk to when he was good, but as long as there was something that made him unhappy, he could turn a small matter into a big matter. Whether he was in the right or not, it seemed that he was always in the right in the end. After thinking for a long time, Wu Sihai, who was sitting in the middle of the main hall, suddenly sighed and said, "Amazing, really amazing. This Yu Qianqiu seems to be moody and joking, but he's actually not that simple." In the hall, Wu Huagan, Zhu Xuanqiu, and Wu Liqing looked at each other. They didn't know why Wu Sihai suddenly said this. At this moment, Wu Lixue walked in carefully and bowed. "Greetings, grandfather, father, mother, and brother." "Heh! Why is Xueqi so obedient today?" Wu Sihai laughed and pointed to the side. "Sit down and talk." The other three also felt that it was a little strange. However, when the four of them saw Wu Lixue awkwardly walking to the side and sitting down, their faces immediately changed. Zhu Sunqiu even jumped up. His lips trembled and he could not say a word. Wu Lixue thought that others couldn't see anything, but she didn't know that her grandfather, parents, and brother could see the clues at a glance. After all, her family was full of experienced people. She was still fine when she went out in the morning, but now she was no longer a virgin. How could her family figure it out without saying a word? Seeing that her family was looking at her like this, especially her mother's reaction, Wu Lixue avoided her eyes and asked guiltily, "Mother, what's wrong?" Wu Sihai coughed and gestured to Zhu Xuanqiu to sit down, but the latter didn't see it. Wu Huagan frowned and pulled his wife, saying, "Father wants you to sit down." Zhu Xuanqiu looked at her father-in-law, her chest heaving up and down, but she still sat down obediently. "Our Xueqi has really grown up." It was so lively at the ancestral shrine today, but Grandpa didn't see Xueqi go to watch. Wu Sihai forced a smile and asked, "Who was Xueqi playing with today?" Wu Lixue dawdled for a moment and replied guiltily, "I didn't play with anyone. I just bumped into Yu Qianqiu at the silent guest fort today." Later on, he said he wanted to look for Grandpa. "Oh yeah, Grandpa, where's Yu Qianqiu?" Everyone's expression became more and more strange. Wu Sihai coughed and asked, "Xueqi didn't talk to anyone else except Yu Qianqiu today?" Wu Lixue's cheeks were a little red, and she nodded and said, "I just met Yu Qianqiu. After that, I stayed at quiet guest camp and didn't see anyone else." She didn't forget to ask, "Grandpa, didn't Yu Qianqiu go to find you? Where is he?" Even an idiot could tell. At this moment, they finally confirmed the culprit that caused Wu Lixue to lose her virginity. It was actually Yu Qianqiu, who killed the Wu clan's disciple and burned the Wu clan's ancestral hall. "Goddamn Yu Qianqiu, Zhu Sunqiu will not let you go." Zhu Sunqiu couldn't hold it in anymore. He stood up and roared. Wu Lixue was a little dumbfounded. "All of you get out!" Wu Sihai shouted. "I have something to say to Xueqi alone." Seeing that Zhu Sunqiu was unmoved, Wu Sihai said in a deep voice, "Wu Huagan, take your wife away." Zhu Sunqiu wanted to say something, but he was restrained by Wu Huagan and helped out on the spot. Wu Liqing followed behind. When he passed by his sister, he looked at her with a strange expression. He couldn't tell what expression he had. His best friend had slept with his sister. His feelings were complicated. When everyone was gone, Wu Sihai approached and smiled kindly. "Xueqi, don't be afraid. Tell me honestly, are you in a relationship with Yu Qianqiu?" Wu Lixue suddenly looked up with a, "How would you know" expression. Under Wu Sihai's encouraging gaze, she nodded shyly and lowered her head. Recalling what Yu Qianqiu had said to her, she twisted the corner of her clothes with her fingers, lowered her head, and bit her lips. "Grandpa, I'm already Yu Qianqiu's woman, but I'm afraid that mother will." "Haha. My Xueqi has really grown up. You're a woman now." "Good, good." Wu Sihai touched her hair lovingly and encouraged her. "Don't be afraid of your mother. As long as you really like him, you can boldly pursue your own happiness. I'll take care of everything for you." Hearing this, Wu Lixue's uneasy heart was suddenly relieved. She smiled and said, "Thank you, Grandpa." However, when she looked outside, she still had a lingering fear. Clearly, she was still a little afraid of seeing her angry mother. Wu Sihai saw her worry and laughed. "I'll find your mother now and explain everything. You don't have to worry about anything. Also, it's not convenient for you. Go rest first." "Grandpa, I'm going to ignore you." Wu Lixue pouted shyly and awkwardly fled. Wu Sihai looked up to the sky and laughed. Twirling his beard, his eyes glowed as he muttered to himself, "Yu Qianqiu, if you have the ability, don't appear. Once you become this old man's grandson-in-law, I want to see you jump into the sky." After escaping from the Wu family, Yu Qianqiu returned to Utopia and immediately disappeared. He appeared next to the underground azure fire in Twilight Valley of the Demon Realm and tried to absorb the fire element to replenish what he had expended today. In the end, he did not find any resistance like last time, so he let loose and absorbed to his heart's content. After that, he looked at the underground fire hole and was considering whether he should go down and explore again when he suddenly covered his nose and sneezed. Yu Qianqiu looked around and muttered, "Damn it! Who's cursing me?" Needless to say, it's definitely those old farts from the Wu family. Damn, today is inauspicious. It's best if I don't take the risk. With that said, he disappeared again. Chapter 290. When he reappeared, he was on a small hill outside of Twilight Valley, the place where Healy had brought him to Twilight Valley. He looked around. It was extremely quiet. His foot pushed aside some dirt, revealing a silver orb. Yu Qianqiu smiled and covered it up again. When he had been standing here with Healy, he had secretly kept something up his sleeve just in case something unexpected happened. With a clang, the sword left its sheath and drew a white arc in the air. Yu Qianqiu stepped on it and leisurely flew in the direction of Obedient Island. Was it really leisurely? Probably not. The vast lake was a deep blue, and no one knew what secrets were hidden beneath it. It was a place that not even Bai Chongqun could pry into. As the streak of light flew over the lake, Yu Qianqiu's mind was rapidly turning. This trip had delayed him for a few days. He didn't know if Bai Chongqun had returned or not. Whether he had come or not, what he should say and what he should do needed to be carefully considered. To him, this was an enormous challenge filled with both risk and opportunity. Between him and Healy, one of them would surely suffer, and the crux would be Bai Chongqun's attitude. If it really was as Healy had said, that Bai Chongqun really did have some interest in him, then his chances of success in this adventure were rather high. Just the thought of one day reaching the deity transformation stage excited him. Yu Qianqiu let out a long sigh. If I want to obtain, I don't have to be afraid of paying. What's there to be afraid of? At worst, I'll just run. The flying sword accelerated and shot forward with an indomitable will. After arriving in the sky above Obedient Island without any danger, Yu Qianqiu glanced down and was instantly so frightened that his hands and feet went numb and his little heart began to thump. In the open space in front of the house at the center of the island, two people were looking up at him. Bai Chongqun had already changed from his farmer's attire into a plain robe and was expressionlessly staring at him. Healy, who was standing to the side, had a very unsightly expression as he looked up at Yu Qianqiu with an indescribable expression. As the saying went, riches and honor came from danger. Yu Qianqiu made up his mind. Hovering in the air, his face scrunched up as he wailed, "Senior Bai, I'm innocent. F***CK. Before he could finish his complaint, a familiar force pulled him down from the sky and sent him crashing to the ground. This time, it could be said that he came prepared. He was not as flustered as he was last time. The moment he landed, his divine sense had already locked onto Jin Zhu, and he could escape at any time. However, he did not do so. At the crucial moment, he resolutely gave up. What did escaping mean? It meant that he might have given up the soul formation stage that everyone in the cultivation world dreamed of, and he might never have a second chance. For the dream that he had been pursuing with great difficulty. He decided that he would not give up until the very last moment of his life. Bang! The figure heavily smashed into the ground, shaking the entire ground. A pool of blood splattered from Yu Qianqiu's body in all directions. The pulling force this time was much stronger than the last time. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been smashed into a meat patty. Fortunately, he was not an ordinary person. His cultivation base more or less had some defensive power. A strong feeling of unconsciousness assaulted him. Yu Qianqiu felt that his body no longer belonged to him. He clearly felt that the moment he smashed onto the ground, the strong pulling force suddenly disappeared. There was even a force that slightly slowed down his falling speed. He only smashed onto the ground due to the strong inertia. It was also at that moment that he once again gave up his last chance to escape. What did this mean? It meant that Bai Chongqun had shown mercy. At the same time, it also meant that there was a fleeting hope. The moment he collided with the ground, he smiled. I can't give up my last chance. I absolutely can't give up. Yu Qianqiu used all the willpower in his body to resist the feeling of unconsciousness that assaulted him like a tide. Lying on the ground, immersed in a pool of blood, he raised his stubborn head slightly in disbelief. There was not a single part of his body that could move. Only the sound of bones twisting could be heard from his neck. His protruding and bleeding eyes stared hard at He Li. With an almost inaudible voice he said, "Senior Bai, I'm innocent." That gaze was as if he had an irreconcilable hatred with He Li. It was as if he would not let him go even if he became a ghost. After saying that, the last thought in his mind was that he would win this time. Yu Qianqiu's head finally touched the ground in the pool of blood, and he completely fainted. That stubborn expression made even by Changchun, who had no distractions for more than 2,000 years, slightly twitched his face. He silently stared at the young man who had fainted in the pool of blood. He swept a cold glance at He Li and then looked at Yu Qianqiu. He Li, on the other hand, was frightened by Yu Qianqiu's dying words. He could feel his master's gaze sizing him up a moment ago. He turned around and cupped his hands. "Master, this Yu Qianqiu escaped from Shuntian Island without permission. His death is not to be regretted. I will throw him into the lake to feed the fishes, so as not to dirty this place. He still has a breath left. Just leave him here, don't bother about him." Bai Changchun released his divine sense to check on Yu Qianqiu's body. His eyebrows twitched unconsciously. His gaze was a little surprised. He then turned around and walked into the house, sighing, "If the heavens have feelings, whether he can come back to life depends on his own luck." "I know, Master." He Li was a little unhappy, but his tone and expression did not show it. Bai Changchun sat cross-legged in the main hall with his eyes closed. He Li looked at Yu Qianqiu with a complicated gaze, then helplessly retreated. He Li didn't have the guts to play tricks in front of Bai Changchun. Inside the unconscious Yu Qianqiu's body, the golden pearl in his dantian suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light. Waves of warm energy began to flow from his dantian to his limbs, repairing his severely damaged meridians and limbs. Deep into the night, Yu Qianqiu, who was lying on the ground, suddenly let out an almost inaudible groan. Although the sound was weak, how could it escape Bai Changchun's ears? Bai Changchun released his divine sense and quickly locked onto Yu Qianqiu's body, checking on the changes in his body. A moment later, Bai Changchun opened his eyes. His eyes gleamed brightly in the darkness. He didn't expect Yu Qianqiu to be so heavily injured, yet he only used a short amount of time to recover. This brat didn't do any healing, nor did he take any medicine. His body was actually healing itself. Previously, when Yu Qianqiu had fainted, he had checked with his divine sense. Yu Qianqiu's bones and meridians were almost all broken, and he was barely hanging on to his last breath. Just like what He Li had said to Yu Qianqiu, as long as people came to the demon ghost region, as long as they didn't go too far, Bai Changchun would show some mercy. He wouldn't be as ruthless as he was to demon ghosts, killing them without mercy. But it was this mercy that made Bai Changchun discover the abnormality of Yu Qianqiu. Under the situation where his meridians and bones were broken, he shouldn't be able to use his Xueqi, but something incredible happened. This young man's body had the ability to recover on its own. Speaking of which, it had to be attributed to the mysterious effects of the golden pearl. Bai Changchun discovered that the mysterious power that healed Yu Qianqiu's body came from his dantian. However, with his cultivation, he couldn't discover the golden pearl in Yu Qianqiu's dantian. This left Bai Changchun puzzled. In fact, no one knew, including Yu Qianqiu himself. Every time his body recovered, the purple chaos in Utopia would decrease. Of course, the decrease was insignificant compared to the massive amount of purple chaos in Utopia. Chapter 291. Night had passed, and the sky was turning bright. Under Bai Changchun's gaze, Yu Qianqiu had unknowingly sat down cross-legged on the ground. When the first ray of sunlight shone on Obedient Island, Yu Qianqiu's body trembled and he let out a breath. He slowly opened his eyes and revealed a look of joy. Just now, he had unknowingly broken through to the core formation late stage, and he had woken up. Bai Changchun's eyes had unknowingly closed again. When Yu Qianqiu saw the person in the opposite room, he was stunned. He recalled the situation before he fainted and quickly checked his body. His body had already recovered, and his cultivation had also broken through to the core formation late stage. However, the vital essence in his body was extremely lacking, and he did not know why. He did not know how long he had been unconscious for, but the fact that his body was not under his control when he was injured showed that he had definitely been severely injured. For him to be able to recover to this state, it was definitely due to the miraculous effects of the golden bead. What worried him was that with Bai Chongqun's cultivation, he would definitely notice the changes in his injuries. He did not know if this would raise Bai Chongqun's suspicions. Seeing that Bai Chongqun's eyes were still closed, Yu Qianqiu did not believe that with Bai Chongqun's cultivation, he would not be able to tell that he had recovered. After thinking about it, he first grabbed a spirit pill and swallowed it. Then, he grabbed a high-grade spirit stone with each hand and absorbed the spiritual qi within. No matter what the outcome was, he had to recover the vital essence in his body first. As for the rest, he would take it one step at a time. After a long time, when his body was full of vital essence, Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes in high spirits. The first thing he did was look at Bai Chongqun. The old man was still as indifferent as before. Yu Qianqiu's gaze fell on the large area beside him that was stained with his blood. The blood had already dried and turned black, but it still made his heart ache. He took out a small shovel that he used to plant spirit herbs from his storage bag and scraped up the blood on the ground bit by bit before collecting it into a bag. He could not waste it. This pool of blood might be useless to others, but it was very useful to him. Every member of Utopia's army had a silver number plate on their chest. It contained their blood essence. They had poured half a bowl of blood into it, dipped a brush in it, and added it into the plate. Only then did it become the number plate that the members wore. The reason he did this was naturally so that he could better understand everyone's movements. This was especially so when he dragged Utopia into a fight. He knew every member's position very well. Apart from him, no one else in Utopia knew about this. Not long after, the bag in his hand was filled to the brim. The blood had seeped into the soil, so he had scraped a few layers of the ground. As long as it was soil mixed with his own blood, it was useful to him. It could be used for a long time, and for a long time, he would no longer have to feel heartache and bleed himself. His strange actions finally made Bai Chongqun open his eyes, and the person who was watching his every move from the room not far away, Crane Li's gaze was also filled with doubt. What shocked the master and disciple the most was that Yu Qianqiu was able to recover in one night after suffering such heavy injuries. Furthermore, he even had a breakthrough in his cultivation. It was simply unbelievable. Yu Qianqiu focused on scraping the blood off the ground, and the originally flat ground immediately caved in. He weighed the bag in his hand and found that it weighed tens of kilograms. Although most of it was made up of mud, it was imaginable how much blood he had lost to be able to soak so much mud. After sacrificing so much, it was time for him to seek justice. Yu Qianqiu quietly tied up the bag and threw it into his storage bag. He turned to face Bai Chongqun and knelt down. I left Obedient Island without permission and was framed. I was tricked by Senior's disciple Healy. Otherwise, I would not have dared to leave Obedient Island without permission. Senior, please seek justice. He had already made up his mind to kill Healy, so he did not leave any leeway. He was not afraid that Healy would dare retaliate against him in front of Bai Chongqun. Ever since Yu Qianqiu had suddenly returned, Healy had sensed that something was wrong. In truth, Bai Chongqun and Yu Qianqiu had returned right after each other. Upon seeing his master, Healy immediately said that Yu Qianqiu had fled Obedient Island while he was away. He dared to say this because he had returned to Twilight Valley and discovered that Yu Qianqiu had disappeared. As a result, he concluded that he had been burned to ash by the blue flames. Who could have expected that scoundrel to return right after he reported to his master? Now that he heard Yu Qianqiu say this, Healy was frightened out of his wits. He immediately knelt at Yu Qianqiu's side and kowtowed. Master, Yu Qianqiu is framing this disciple. It was clearly him who fled while this disciple was gone, but he wants to pin the blame on this disciple. What? Are you panicking now? Are you afraid? You must be very surprised that I didn't die. Yu Qianqiu teased. I remember everything you said to me in Twilight Valley, not forgetting a single word. Are you going to tell Senior by yourself, or do you want me to do it for you? The moment the words Twilight Valley came out, Bai Chongqun stared at Healy. Healy indignantly said, Yu Qianqiu, don't slander me. When did I go with you to Twilight Valley? Healy wanted nothing more than to tear Yu Qianqiu to pieces on the spot, but he did not dare to do so. He couldn't understand how Yu Qianqiu had managed to escape from Twilight Valley. First there was the array protecting the blue flames, and then there was the array outside Twilight Valley. 2 ancient arrays. How could he have come out if he could not enter? He had also thought of a terrifying possibility. Bai Chongqun and Yu Qianqiu had arrived one after the other, so perhaps Bai Chongqun had brought Yu Qianqiu out. However, after Bai Chongqun heavily injured Yu Qianqiu, he dispelled this doubt. Slander me? Haha. Healy, there is no grudge between us. If it weren't for the fact that you wanted to take my little life, I wouldn't have been able to find you today. Also, Yu Qianqiu suddenly changed the topic and harshly yelled, Healy, the personal grudge between you and me is small. After leaving Twilight Valley, I originally wanted to leave, but when I thought about how you vainly attempted to use the power of the demon realm to disturb the mortal world after Senior Bai went to the Eastern Holy Lands, I, Yu Qianqiu, as a member of the mortal world, will risk my life to expose your scheme to Senior Bai. As long as Senior Bai understands, for the sake of the peace of the mortal world, I, Yu Qianqiu, am willing to sacrifice my lowly life to expose your scheme to Senior Bai. His words were spoken with a strong sense of righteousness, and there was a trace of the lofty sentiments of sacrificing himself to protect the Tao. As for what he was thinking, only he himself knew. When he looked at Bai Chongqun, he was confident that he would have some sort of reaction, but Bai Chongqun remained expressionless the entire time. He simply sat there, listening to the two argue, showing no reaction. This made Yu Qianqiu's little heart a little nervous. Master, this person is speaking irresponsibly and deliberately driving a wedge between us master and disciple. He definitely doesn't have any good intentions. This disciple is willing to kill such a vile person. Healy hurriedly explained. He had actually wanted to silence Yu Qianqiu by killing him. He knew that he had been too careless at the time, believing that Yu Qianqiu could not escape Twilight Valley, so he had said many things that he should not have. If he had allowed Yu Qianqiu to continue, it would have been impossible for Bai Chongqun not to believe him. Healy expectantly stared at Bai Chongqun. As long as his master nodded, he would kill him. Yu Qianqiu sneered. You want to silence me? Healy, you are a smart person. You should know that Senior Bai's divine eyes are like lightning. All deceit and deception are useless. Obediently admit your guilt. That will save me the trouble of exposing your past. Perhaps Senior Bai will spare your life for the sake of our relationship as master and disciple. You must know that there is a good saying in this world. Those who confess will be lenient, those who resist will be severely punished. Can't you see that Senior Bai isn't saying anything because he wants to give you one last chance? Bai Chongqun gave Yu Qianqiu a strange glance. Healy, on the other hand, broke out in a cold sweat and yelled, Yu Qianqiu, shut your mouth. Stop talking nonsense and trying to bewitch people. Chapter 292. Who's spouting nonsense? Yu Qianqiu glared at him. You called Senior Bai an old fart behind his back. Do you admit it? Healy paled in fright and could no longer kneel. He hurriedly stood up and yelled, Yu Qianqiu, if you keep talking nonsense, don't blame me for being impolite. With the other's provocation, Yu Qianqiu's character from back when he roamed the streets once more appeared. There was nothing to be afraid of in a quarrel, let alone a duel. He stopped kneeling and immediately stood up. He rolled up his sleeves and pulled out his sword. He held the sword in his hand like a machete and waved it twice. He sneered and said, Birdman, you want to fight because you have a guilty conscience, don't you? You don't dare to let me finish? His image as a street scoundrel caused Bai Chongqun's eyes to freeze for a moment. Healy glanced at his master and bit his lip until it was white. In the end, he did not dare to attack, but his entire body trembled in anger. He had lived in the demon region for many years. Although his cultivation was not at the peak, whether it was the Yao King or the Ghost King, no one dared to act so rudely with him. Today, he had finally met his match. Yu Qianqiu seemed to realize that his current appearance was a disgrace and had ruined the righteous image he had just put on. With an embarrassed expression, he sheathed his sword and cupped his hands to Bai Chongqun. Senior Bai that day, Healy told Junior that Senior had gone out and would need 10 some days to return. He also told me that this world had 3 true flames and that Twilight Valley hid one of the 3 true flames, the Azure Flame. He spent all his effort to entice Junior's heart and finally tricked Junior into entering Twilight Valley. Nonsense, it was clearly you who used the roasted fish to trick me into taking you there. Healy's voice was harsh, his two hands forming into claws. Gray evil energy curled around his fingertips and seethed with killing intent. At the slightest misstep, he would deliver a fatal blow. To the side, Yu Qianqiu naturally saw and sensed this, and he immediately became cautious on the inside. Why would I lie to a birdman like you? If you didn't tell me about Twilight Valley's hidden blue and that 9 nethers hidden black, who the hell would know that there was some 3 true flames here? I've never even heard of them before. What? Do you really want to kill someone in front of Senior Bai? Yu Qianqiu put on a disdainful look. He turned around and continued to salute. Junior was trapped by He Li in the green fire great array. Only then did I know the cause of the matter from his mouth. He said that the senior wanted to pass the position of torture envoy of the demon ghost region to someone called Mr. Nongzhu, but that Mr. Nongzhu was not willing to take over. Instead, he suggested letting He Li take over. In the end, I happened to come to Obedient Island and lived here as an outsider for the first time. He Li was worried that Senior would pass the position of punishment envoy to me, so he wanted to kill me. The reason was that Senior and I were both humans, while he was a demon. After some insider information that outsiders did not know was revealed, He Li's face turned ashen. He knew that everything was over. His claws returned to normal, and the vicious aura retracted back into his body. He stood there as if he was waiting for death. He was well aware of his master's cultivation. If his master wanted his life, he wouldn't even have a chance to do so. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and proudly continued. Junior found it strange at the time. With his cultivation, he could have killed me anywhere. So why did he have to go through so much trouble to lure me to Twilight Valley's green fire great array? After asking, I learned that the demon ghost region has been intimidated by a set of spirit treasures, and no battle can escape Senior's discerning eyes. As long as he trapped me in the green fire great array and waited for the green fire great array to erupt, this Junior would die without anyone knowing. Not even Senior would know. At that time, he could just make up a reason for my escape and easily escape responsibility. In truth, to this Junior, a mere core formation cultivator dying in the demon ghost region is nothing. At this point, Yu Qianqiu suddenly revealed a pained expression. He thrust his sword at He Li and yelled. But that birdman was completely deranged. He said that Senior would show some mercy to any human that came to the demon ghost region, but he would be merciless to the Yao ghosts, killing them without mercy. He wanted to vent the anger of the demi-humans and actually wanted to use the power of the demon ghost region to rampage through the human world once he had complete control over the demon ghost region. For this, even if this Junior had to escape Twilight Valley, he would risk his life to come here and expose the truth to Senior. As he spoke, he deeply bowed to Bai Chongqun. But when he bowed, Bai Chongqun did not react for a long time, as if he had never heard him. Yu Qianqiu stood up and saw that Bai Chongqun was unperturbed and expressionless. Moreover, he had closed his eyes once more. Crane Li also discovered it, and exchanged a glance with Yu Qianqiu, his enemy. The former's stunned expression revealed a look of joy, while the latter was cursing in his heart. Now that things have reached this point, this disciple admits it all and does not dare to hide anything, nor does he dare to beg for Master's forgiveness. I implore Master to punish me. This disciple will die without complaint. It is just that I have let down Master's many years of guidance. This disciple's heart aches, but it is too late for regrets. In the blink of an eye, He Li had already knelt on the ground with tears streaming down his face, admitting his guilt. Fuck. Was he playing the sympathy card? This birdman could really go act. Damn. He was just about to succeed, so he didn't want to ruin it. Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched, and he immediately knelt down. In order to protect the peace of the human world, Senior has presided over this desolate land for more than 2,000 years. Such a magnificent feat is truly a model for the human cultivation world. If Junior has the chance to return to the human world, he will definitely spread the praises of Senior's deeds and Senior will be revered by all generations. His bootlicking was simply too flattering. He was flattering Bai Chongqun, but he was killing He Li. He and He Li had already caused such a ruckus that neither of them would let the other go. The two kneeling there were well aware of this. Yu Qianqiu wanted to flatter Bai Chongqun until he had no choice but to kill He Li. Sending 2 more flattering hats was just a bit of lip service, but leaving behind a future problem would be troublesome. He Li naturally understood, and a hint of resentment flashed through his eyes. He suddenly turned his head and said, Yu Qianqiu, I admit that I tricked you into the blue fire array, But there is one thing I don't understand. The array inside the blue fire array and the array outside Twilight Valley are both ancient arrays. Ordinary people who don't understand the technique cannot enter and leave. How did you escape from inside? Yu Qianqiu's heart chilled. This birdman truly wasn't a good person. He was clearly saying this for Bai Chongqun to hear. If he didn't give a good explanation, even if Bai Chongqun killed this birdman, it wouldn't end well for him. Fortunately, he had already considered this point and had a countermeasure. As for his invincible escape technique and his life-saving technique, he definitely wouldn't say anything. After a moment of silence, he shook his head and smiled. Healy, do you still remember the murals in Twilight Valley? Healy put on a sincere expression and asked, could the murals in Twilight Valley contain some sort of method to break arrays? That's not right. You were trapped in the blue fire array, so you couldn't have come out and carefully studied the murals. Could it be that you've memorized all the murals on both sides just by passing by? That's not it. Let me ask you, do you know the origins of the woman in the murals? Yu Qianqiu asked with a smile. The two of them continued to exchange questions and answers as if the bickering had never happened. I know. She's the divine craftsman's maid. Little Snow. It's Little Snow, correct. Let me ask you, do you know her origins? Healy suspiciously replied, I don't know. Could it be that her origins are related to your escape? As expected of a smart person. AI. If anyone else had been trapped by you, they would have undoubtedly died, and your scheme would have succeeded. Unfortunately, you ran into me. The will of the heavens wants me to live. Yu Qianqiu looked at Healy and gave a pleased smile. The extreme north has the Snow Fox race, and Little Snow comes from there. Just like you, I'm a demi-human. After the divine craftsman died, Little Snow returned to the Snow Fox race and passed down a few treasures and arrays that the divine craftsman had refined. Coincidentally, I had a rather good relationship with the Snow Fox race, and the blue fire array and the array outside Twilight Valley were also recorded in the Snow Fox race. Coincidentally, I also read about them. Haha. I spent some time pondering and managed to escape just like that. Healy, don't you think that the heavens have not forsaken me? Healy stood there in a daze, completely speechless. Even he had run into such a coincidence. Even Bai Chongqun's brows twitched, as if this was his first time learning of Little Snow's origins. He opened his eyes, and his gaze swept over the two of them. His lips moved slightly as he spat out an ancient voice. Are the two of you done arguing? I won't ask who's right or wrong, nor will I say anything else. Only one of you can stay alive on Obedient Island. Do as you see fit. After saying this, he closed his eyes again. What did he mean? The two of them were dumbfounded. They had been quarreling like monkeys for a long time, but this was what Bai Chongqun had been holding back for so long. Then what had they been arguing about? He clearly wanted the two of them to. Fuck! Yu Qianqiu came to his senses and let out a strange cry. The sword in his hand shot at Healy like a bolt of lightning. This was a fight to the death. He naturally had to strike first. Chapter 293. When Healy heard his master's words, he was overjoyed. His cultivation level was clearly higher than Yu Qianqiu's by a large margin. His master's actions were clearly biased towards him. But before he could finish being happy, Yu Qianqiu made the first move. He didn't even greet him and attacked. Yu Qianqiu's actions were considered a sneak attack. But the difference in their cultivation levels was too great. It would have been strange if a sneak attack had succeeded. Healy roared. Despicable! At the same time, his fingers formed 5 claws and he waved his hand to deflect the flying sword. The two of them were very close. After the flying sword was deflected, Healy aimed for Yu Qianqiu's shoulder. Yu Qianqiu wasn't an idiot. He knew that the chance of this sword injuring his opponent was very small. When he released the flying sword, he slapped the ground with his other hand. The kneeling person stood up and bounced into the air. The flying sword that was deflected by Healy returned in a blink of an eye and caught Yu Qianqiu. You feathered animal! You dare to say the word despicable in front of me? Are you done being despicable and I'm not allowed to be despicable? I said the wrong thing. How can I be the old man of a feathered animal? Yu Qianqiu stood in the air and cursed. At the same time, xiao-xiao sounds could be heard. Nearly 100 flying swords flew out from his storage pouch and circled around his body. It was a spectacular sight to behold. Once the flying swords appeared, he could immediately feel that after his cultivation level reached the late stage of core formation, he could control them more freely. To Heli, he felt that this was a battle without any suspense. It was an opportunity given to him by his master. Looking up at Yu Qianqiu, he sneered, "You're the one who asked for it. Don't blame me." His hands formed into claws and slowly lifted up. The vicious energy around his claws reappeared and solidified into something that looked like scales. His hands looked like claws. Evil chi emanated from his claws and revolved around his arms, slowly covering his entire body, forming a faintly discernible membrane on the surface of his body. Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes as he looked down. This was the third time he had fought against a master in the middle stage of the crossing calamity stage. The first time he caused trouble at supporting Immortal Island's new talent assembly. He was severely injured by Dongfang Chong Ao and fled. The second time was not long ago, when he had a small test with Wu Zhanggang. He didn't expect the third time to come so soon. This time was different from the previous 2 times. It would be a fierce battle. Although he didn't know what Bai Chongqun's intentions were, he wouldn't give up easily until the last moment. He only had one chance to ride on Bai Chongqun's coattails. If he didn't try his best, how would he know the result? Therefore, he wouldn't run away easily. He was destined to fight to the end. Ever since he started cultivating, he had never used his full strength in a battle. Today he would get what he wanted. After noticing the change in He Li's hands, a thought suddenly flashed in Yu Qianqiu's mind. He had never seen this birdman holding any weapons. His original body was a crane. Could it be that he was used to using his claws? The membrane on his body was naturally his protective aura. He didn't know if his flying swords would be able to break through his aura. Go! Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes and pointed down with the sword-driving art. Among the swords that were dancing around him, 50 flying swords flashed in all directions, drifting erratically around He Li, appearing and disappearing at a speed that was hard to predict with the naked eye. Their speed was extremely fast, quietly approaching the target. Now that his cultivation had increased, he could control flying swords with such ease. It feels so good. This was what Yu Qianqiu was thinking at this moment. He Li was as motionless as a mountain, his eyes darting left and right as he guarded against any sudden attacks from the flying swords. He had never seen someone like Yu Qianqiu who could simultaneously control so many flying swords. However, he didn't panic in the slightest. No matter how mystical Yu Qianqiu's sword control technique was, he was still a core formation cultivator and couldn't pose much of a threat to him. However, he wasn't one to underestimate his opponent. He waited here and didn't move because he wanted to see just how much strength Yu Qianqiu had. After all, the fact that Yu Qianqiu had been able to escape from Twilight Valley meant that he wasn't as simple as he made himself out to be. If that really was the case, he would quickly end this battle. At some point, Bai Chongqun was standing under the eaves with his hands behind his back, calmly watching the battle unfold before him. He Li's calmness and vigilance allowed Yu Qianqiu to guess what he was planning. His eyes narrowed, and a glint flashed in his eyes. He took out a stack of yellow talismans from his bag of holding, and with a wave of his left hand, a group of yellow shadows shot toward He Li. He Li glanced up in surprise. He hadn't expected that Yu Qianqiu would be able to control so many flying swords at the same time and still have the time to do something else. He glanced at the flickering cold light around him, and his protective stellar energy surged, rapidly thickening. At this moment, the group of yellow shadows exploded, engulfing He Li in flames. He Li sneered. So it was just a bunch of fire talismans. Did these things really think they could injure him? As the flames spread to the surrounding houses, Bai Chongqun's long beard fluttered without any wind, and the flames stopped right in front of the houses. As the flames burned, Yu Qianqiu threw out a stack of talismans in his right hand. A group of yellow shadows rushed into the sea of flames, and immediately after, a series of loud explosions rang out. The entire Obedient Island could probably feel the tremors. These were the Astral Breaker talismans, made by Chen Feng. However, these talismans seem to have some effect on early nascent soul stage cultivators, but not on tribulation stage cultivators. Yu Qianqiu naturally knew this, and the effect he wanted was to confuse the eyes and ears. The Astral Breaker talismans rang out, and Yu Qianqiu formed a hand seal. Within the sea of flames and smoke below, A cold light flashed continuously, followed by a series of rapid explosions that lasted for a long time. However, after a short while, the explosions gradually faded until there was no more movement. In the air, Yu Qianqiu's expression changed. The 50 flying swords that he had released were all gathered together, and were no longer under his control. What was going on? Not long after, the flames burned out, and the smoke from the astral breaker talismans gradually dissipated. He Li's ferocious smile appeared, and in his hand was a large number of flying swords that were gathered together. These were the flying swords that Yu Qianqiu had released. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. The flying swords were so fast, but they were all caught by He Li. "Is that all you've got?" He Li sneered. As he spoke, he twisted his hands, and the 50 flying swords that had been tempered by the black gold sand made a zhi-zhi sound. In the blink of an eye, he twisted them into a ball and threw them to the ground. Damn it! What kind of rotten claw is that? It's simply abnormal. Yu Qianqiu's eyelids twitched. Even though he was at a disadvantage in a fight, he still had to take advantage of his words. "Then I'll let you know the power of my crane claw." He Li snorted coldly. His figure suddenly disappeared. It was as if he had teleported. He felt that he had figured out Yu Qianqiu's background, so he immediately launched an attack. Yu Qianqiu's pupils shrank. Could it be the teleportation at the end of the crossing calamity? No. He vaguely saw a shadow flickering in the air. It was definitely not teleportation, but because the speed was too fast, Yu Qianqiu immediately felt a fatal threat. With a thought, the surrounding flying swords danced around his body, forming a cold light to protect his body. Dang, a crisp sound was heard. Several flying swords were slapped away. Due to the obstruction of the flying swords, He Li appeared not far away. He drilled through the sword net and stretched out his claws. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. With a thought, the surrounding flying swords turned around and shot towards He Li like a torrential rain. Unfortunately, they collided with He Li's protective aura qi and bounced off. They simply could not break through his protective aura qi. Well, a person who was not good at long-range attacks but good at close-range attacks would certainly have a stronger defense. Yu Qianqiu was chased in the air. He dodged left and right. The bounced flying swords were once again regrouped and continued to attack. Rapid explosions resounded in the air. Although He Li was not afraid of these flying swords, they still hindered his flying speed. He could not catch up to Yu Qianqiu in a short period of time. After a long time, he was naturally annoyed. His hands moved like a phantom. Every flying sword that flew towards him was caught by him. As long as they were caught, Yu Qianqiu would not be able to take them back based on his cultivation. Other than those who were at the end of the crossing tribulation, this was the first time Yu Qianqiu had seen someone who could attack so quickly. His flying swords were already fast enough, but his opponent was actually able to catch them with his bare hands. This was a little too fast. He did not know that He Li was a crane of the demon race. He was most proficient in speed. How could an ordinary person compare to him? Especially his pair of claws. Although he did not use any treasures, his claws were not inferior to treasures. Moreover, they could evolve along with his cultivation. He Li caught 4 or 5 flying swords and threw them away. After a few times, there were not many flying swords left in the air. But Yu Qianqiu had no choice. If he did not use his flying swords, he would be caught. Fuck! When the last few swords in the air were twisted into a dough twist, Yu Qianqiu let out a strange cry. He Li had already shot towards him like lightning. Yu Qianqiu did not dodge. He knew that he could not dodge with his speed. So he jumped down from the flying sword. It looked like he was jumping off a building to his death. The flying sword under his feet played its final role in blocking the enemy. It whistled as it shot towards He Li. Yu Qianqiu shouted as he fell. "Senior Bai, save me!" His voice was extremely miserable. Creak! The last sword was sacrificed. He Li laughed evilly and pounced towards Yu Qianqiu. He stretched out his claws and pierced the top of Yu Qianqiu's head. Looking down, he suddenly saw Yu Qianqiu raising his head and looking at him coldly. Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and pointed 2 fingers at his own claw. He was really courting death. Crane Li's smile became even more radiant. His 5 claws fiercely clasped onto the 2 fingers that Yu Qianqiu had pointed at him. If nothing unexpected happened, they would be able to see a badly mutilated scene and miserable screams. But an accident really happened. The moment the fingers and claws intersected, Yu Qianqiu's 2 fingers flashed with a demonic green light. He Li's claws immediately felt a burning pain. The gang qi covering his claws was instantly broken. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yu Qianqiu coldly snorted. He had condensed the highest temperature of his blue flame to unleash this attack. He had spent half a day putting on a show just to wait for Li He's carelessness. In this battle, it was either you die or I live. There was no room for negotiation. He Li could not run away. Although the power of the blue flame was huge, but with his opponent's high cultivation, it would be difficult to get close to him. He Li could not catch up to him. No matter how powerful the blue flame was, it would be useless if it could not hit him. After witnessing He Li's speed, Yu Qianqiu was even more determined to lure the enemy. Only when the enemy was careless would it be the best opportunity for his blue flame to show its power. And this attack really worked. The green flame shot out from his 2 fingers, instantly broke through Heli's earth energy, and directly burned the claw that was reaching out towards him to ashes. Yu Qianqiu would not give him a second chance. Even if he worked hard to lure the enemy, he would not give He Li a chance to turn things around. Yeah! Yu Qianqiu roared. Before he could even retract his finger, a burst of vigorous green flame surged out of his body. The incomparably high temperature quickly engulfed He Li, who was on top of him. The green flame spun and emitted a hoo-hoo sound. Then, a green pillar of flame soared into the sky and wrapped around He Li with an imposing aura that shook everyone's mind. Ah! It's the blue fire. He Li let out a blood-curdling scream. When he came to his senses, he twisted his body, but before he could escape, he disappeared within the flames. In the end, he was unable to resist the burning of the blue flames that Yu Qianqiu had used to kill his enemies. Bai Chongqun, who was under the eaves, witnessed this scene. His eyes flashed, but he did not say a word. Chapter 294. Yu Qianqiu let out a sigh of relief as the green flame slowly receded back into his body. He was afraid that he would not be able to break through He Li's gang qi, so when he pointed his finger, he had condensed almost 1/10 of the fire elements in his body. This was also the limit of his current cultivation. If one day his cultivation was high enough, he would be able to condense all the fire elements in his body into one point. Presumably, the power would be even more astonishing. This was like comparing a piece of burning paper to a piece of burning firewood. After igniting, the paper and firewood may both release flames of the same size, but if you grab the burning paper, you might be able to extinguish it. Of course, your hand would be burned. But if you grab the burning firewood with your hand, even if you could extinguish it, you would be able to smell the aroma of roasted meat on your palm. From this, it could be seen that as long as you provided more fire elements, the more powerful it would be. This was the same principle as the flames released by Yu Qianqiu. Under the suppression of a flame of the same size, the more fire elements Yu Qianqiu provided, the higher the temperature. That small point contained 1/10 of the fire elements in his body. In addition to the overbearing nature of the green flame, how could He Li endure it? The compressed green flame, in addition to the release from his body, instantly forced out nearly 30% of the fire elements in his body. Although a lot of it was recovered in the end, there was still nearly 1/10 of the fire elements in his body. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly. If he had not met such a strong opponent, he would not have been so extravagant. If he had to do it a few more times, the fire elements in his body would only be enough for him to use it 10 times at most. Turning around silently, Yu Qianqiu looked at the legendary celestial being. He did not know what would happen next. After all, he had killed Bai Chongqun's disciple, and he had comprehended the star flame fire art from the stars. If Bai Chongqun comprehended the star flame fire art from the heavenly Tao, Bai Chongqun would understand with a single glance. But if it was different, Bai Chongqun would naturally question him, especially when he used the azure flame. A core formation cultivator can actually kill a tribulation passing stage cultivator. You do have some skill. No wonder you dared to break into my Shuntian island. Bai Chongqun stood under the eaves and nodded. He could not see how He Li's death affected him. Yu Qianqiu bowed and said, "Senior is overpraising me. Heli was careless. I only succeeded by chance. Rumor has it that there is a god of fire in the immortal world, but I have only heard of fire-controlling magic tools in the mortal world. I did not expect that I would be able to broaden my horizons today. There is actually someone who can use his own body as a magic tool, storing fire in his body to be controlled. However, this method of control is a little clumsy. Otherwise, Heli would have been defeated by your hands long ago. I don't know which expert taught you this technique. To be able to have such a divine ability, I presume your master is not a nobody in the cultivation world. Can you tell this old man? This old man wants to pay a visit. Bai Chongchun said indifferently. Ah. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly. I won't hide it from you, senior. I have 2 masters, but unfortunately, I didn't inherit their teachings. Currently, all the skills I use are self-created, and I practice them randomly to protect myself. Self-created? Bai Chongchun's expression was slightly moved. Anyone who was able to create their own cultivation technique was an outstanding genius, and their achievements were higher than ordinary people. Even Bai Chongchun himself was like this. His eyebrows twitched as he asked, "Since you have a master, why didn't you inherit their teachings? Why don't you tell me?" It seemed that this old fellow's Tao was different from his own. Yu Qianqiu speculated to himself. He immediately recounted how he had become Ong Guangsung's disciple and how he had been abandoned on Fuxian Island. Of course, he only said things that were beneficial to him, and he deleted the unfavorable parts. In short, he described himself as extremely wronged. So that's how it was. Bai Chongchun nodded, not expressing any doubt. He then asked, "Did you use Twilight Valley's azure flame just now?" Senior is wise. Heli trapped me in the azure fire array, but he did not know that this junior was like a fish in water. This junior precisely used the azure flame, Yu Qianqiu replied. He also understood that if he wanted to stay in the demon realm, the secret of this fire technique would be exposed sooner or later. It was better to tell the truth to avoid trouble later on. Heli trapped you in the azure flame, but in the end, he died to it. It could be said that the heavenly Tao's cycle of retribution is not pleasant. Bai Chongchun calmly gazed at Yu Qianqiu and said, "I said before that between you and Heli, only one can stay alive on Obedient Island. Since you have survived and have no master, then stay. Starting from today, I will leave the deficient flame profound fruit to you. Be careful not to make any mistakes, or else I will not forgive you." After saying this, he returned to his room and sat down cross-legged. He then added, "Repair the damaged ground outside the room." He then closed his eyes. He said all this, not caring whether Yu Qianqiu agreed or not. It was over just like that? Yu Qianqiu froze and then looked at the craters on the ground. These were all caused by his astral-shattering talismans. He did not dare to ask any more questions. First, he collected the flying swords that were twisted by Heli. Although they were already useless, the materials were still there. They could still be used if he refined them again. It was not difficult to level the ground again. He just had to go outside and dig some soil to fill it. Then, he swept the ground and it would be done. Then, he went to the deficient flame profound fruit that was originally under Heli's care. Looking at the fiery red leaves swaying in the wind, Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt a bit of a toothache. This piece of land, in addition to his original land, was enough for him to work hard. But this was not a big deal. The key was that each of these plants needed high-grade spirit stones to grow every day. Yu Qianqiu pinched his chin and was a little unhappy. The old man didn't give him any benefits, nor did he hint that he would pass the position of torture envoy to him in the future. Did he want him to pay spirit stones in advance to help him grow vegetables? Over time, it would not be a small number. Sigh. The old man does not know how to behave. He did not even give me any verbal encouragement. You are ruthless. I admit defeat. Just as he was complaining in his heart, Bai Chongchun's voice sounded in his ears. I have already sent a message to the entire demon ghost domain. From today onwards, you are my disciple. You can walk freely in the demon ghost domain, and no one will make things difficult for you. The spirit stones needed to grow the deficient flame profound fruit can be asked from any demon king or ghost king in the demon ghost domain. They will give it to you. NN. Yu Qianqiu nodded his head in a daze. His face was full of surprise and he could not hide it even if he wanted to. Happiness came too suddenly. The old man looked very boring, but he did not expect him to like to surprise people. Look, he accidentally became the old man's disciple. Wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted in the demon ghost domain in the future? Damn. There were many good things in the demon ghost domain. Not bad, very good. Disciple understands. Yu Qianqiu bowed towards the center of the island. He stood up and counted with his fingers. This was already his third master. However, this master was not an ordinary person. The first two masters could not be compared to him. The moment he opened his mouth, he gave Yu Qianqiu an inexhaustible amount of money. Get to work. Without saying a word, Yu Qianqiu took out a pile of spirit stones and busied himself. It did not matter if he paid the capital first. Anyway, someone would reimburse him. His enthusiasm was like the overflowing yellow river, endless. Chapter 295. By Changchun, picking Yu Qianqiu to plant the lac flame profound fruit was definitely the wisest choice. The most important thing was that this guy had done this before, so he could directly take up the post without any training. Especially in terms of his work attitude, there was no lack of commendable points. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was immersed in hard work. There were about 200 lac flame profound fruits in the piece of land that he had opened before, but there were about 1,800 left by He Li, so there were about 2,000 in total. Calculating it, he would consume more than 2,000 high-grade spirit stones every day. After calculating, the busy Yu Qianqiu was thinking about when to go to the Ghost King's house to get to know them. 2,000 a day. In a year, it would be more than 700,000 high-grade spirit stones. In the cultivation world, it was enough to support several small sections. Everyone was working under by Changchun, so why did he have to pay for it alone? Thinking about how he still had a large number of subordinates to support, and how high the salary he gave to his subordinates, the expenses were huge. Since I am already by Changchun's disciple, then what I have is masters. Helping master to support a large number of people is my duty. For the time being, it is better not to tell master. I will help master take care of them secretly and find a suitable opportunity to tell master. After finding a reason to comfort myself, the work was done. Yu Qianqiu cast his gaze outside the 1,000 Li Ping Lake. Those demon kings and ghost king who were mingling in master's territory should pay some taxes. What excuse should I use to collect them? Well, I will just say that I am collecting protection fees. Yu Qianqiu was in a good mood and let out a long sigh of relief. Awesome. From today onwards, I can do whatever I want in the demon ghost region. This is something that I did not even dare to think about when I first came here. Thinking back to when I first came here, Meng Yan showed off his power to me. Now I really want to return it to him. Unfortunately, that guy was killed by Changchun. It seems that I can only find an opportunity to show off in front of his widowed wife. Speaking of Yu Ji, at this time, Yu Ji was sitting in the Ghost King's hall with inexplicable surprise. The news of Meng Yan's death really made her sad for a long time. The fate of the two of them for countless years had ended here. Meng Yan, who was dead, could not be with her in the next life, forever. The dead was dead, and the living still had a future to walk. After experiencing the prosperity of the human world and experiencing the tribulation, she became a ghost cultivator for thousands of years. Yu Ji was sad. She thought that without the protection of Meng Yan, she would fall under the crotch of other ghost cultivators, with her appearance. Who knew that Bai Changchun would give her the power of the Ghost King here, which was Ghost Yen, it was a surprise. Yen. Although her cultivation was not very high, as long as she was still in the demon ghost territory, no one dared to disobey Bai Changchun's decree. However, today, Bai Changchun's message surprised her again. Yu Ji was stunned for a long time. He Li deceived his master and destroyed his ancestors. He committed treason and heresy, and has been executed. Today, I have accepted a new disciple named Yu Qianqiu, and I hope to cooperate with him in the demon ghost territory. She thought she had heard it wrong. Yu Qianqiu? Was it that Yu Qianqiu? That Yu Qianqiu actually became Bai Changchun's disciple? After coming to herself, she immediately confirmed her guess. Who else could Yu Qianqiu be except the Yu Qianqiu who broke into the demon ghost territory and was detained by Bai Changchun? He became Bai Changchun's disciple? He became Bai Changchun's disciple. Yu Ji sat on the throne with an inexplicable expression. She still remembered the oath that Yu Qianqiu made to her in the past. He said that when he had the ability, he would take her and her out of the demon ghost territory. Now that Meng Yan was dead, but she was still alive, then Yu Qianqiu must fulfill the oath that he made in the past. Otherwise, cultivators would suffer the wrath of heaven. Yu Ji's bright eyes sparkled, and there was no doubt that there was a hint of joy in her eyes. She had made a forward-looking investment in the past, just for a possibility. She didn't expect that such a thing would happen. It seemed that there was a high chance that she could leave the demon ghost territory. Under the throne, 2 rows of ghost generals in armor stood in great numbers. The group of generals had suspicious looks on their faces. They all noticed the abnormality of Xueqi. Sai Zhongfei stepped forward and cupped his fists. "Madam, did something happen?" Hearing this, Xueqi restrained her emotions, and her expression became solemn. She looked down at the people below, but her heart was in turmoil. "I've had enough of this half-human, half-ghost life. I don't want to be the ghost king who has power over a region. Whoever wants to be can do it. I only want to be reluctant to part with the world of mortals. I should be among the talented scholars and beautiful women under the waning lights." After a moment of silence, Xueqi said calmly, "Mr. Yu is now the disciple of the Celestial Master. Pass down my order. If you see Mr. Yu, come and report immediately. I will go and greet him personally." Her tone was very calm, and there was nothing wrong with her words. She had learned a lesson from the death of Meng Yan and Ao Li. It was better not to let others know that she wanted to leave the demon ghost territory. Otherwise there would be consequences. Everyone understood that no one in the demon ghost territory was worthy of the title of Celestial Master other than Bai Chongqun. However, the disciple of the Celestial Master made people speculate. In the demon ghost territory, Sai Zhongfei was relatively familiar with Yu Qianqiu. He asked doubtfully, "The Mr. Yu that Madam mentioned is Mr. Yu Qianqiu?" Hearing this, everyone came to a sudden realization, but they also couldn't believe it. Under everyone's doubtful eyes, Xueqi said with a smile, "Yes, it is Mr. Yu Qianqiu. I just received the message from the Celestial Master." At this time, the Ghost King's Hall exploded, and there was a lot of discussion. Sai Zhongfei happily cupped his fists and said, "Yes, I will immediately pass on the order." After saying that, he put his hand on the sword at his waist and dragged his armor out of the Ghost King's Hall. Not to mention the people who knew Yu Qianqiu like Xueqi, the other Demon Kings and Ghost King in the Demon Ghost territory became busy after receiving Bai Chongqun's message. They sent their subordinates to find out who this Yu Qianqiu was. Some of them even ordered their subordinates to prepare a big gift. Most people knew Li He, but now that he was dead, not many people knew Yu Qianqiu. Since they didn't know him, they had to prepare a gift in advance. In short, after the news spread, the demon ghost territory became completely lively. During the day, demons ran amok, and at night, there were many ghosts. Everything was for the unknown Yu Qianqiu. The demon ghost domain was a bit chaotic. If Wu Sihai from the 4 great clans knew about this, he would definitely not find it strange. He had long since come to a conclusion that no matter where Yu Qianqiu went, there would be some trouble. It would be strange if nothing happened, and Wu Sihai had already experienced it many times. In fact, it had to be said that the people who were preparing to send the gifts were all very wise people. They did not know that Yu Qianqiu was already thinking about how to collect protection fees from them. Yu Qianqiu would definitely be very happy to see the gifts. At this time, Yu Qianqiu was on the lake of Shuntian Island. His palm was burning with a green flame. He was refining the 100 flying swords destroyed by Li He. The clear water in the lake was just right for the swords. He had to refine them again. With his current cultivation, he still couldn't fly. Without flying swords, he couldn't leave Shuntian Island. He couldn't possibly row a boat or swim. Although Chen Feng had many flying swords in Utopia, they were definitely not as good as these ones that were mixed with mystic gold sand. Furthermore, if he were to collect protection fees and encountered someone who was blind, he could not possibly use Bai Chongqun for such a small matter. The better the flying swords, the more useful they were. He wasn't afraid of Bai Chongqun finding out. Anyway, Bai Chongqun already knew the secret of the green flame, so there was no need to hide it. However, Bai Chongqun, who was sitting cross-legged in the room at the center of the island, suddenly opened his eyes when the balls of molten metal were being refined into flying swords skillfully and casually in the green flame on his palm. Bai Chongqun, who was sitting cross-legged in the room at the center of the island, suddenly opened his eyes. His sole consciousness quickly moved to the surroundings of Yu Qianqiu, who was immersed in refining the swords, but the latter was completely unaware of it. After the 100 flying swords were refined, one was returned to the scabbard on his back, and the rest were returned to the storage bag. He originally wanted to go to the Demon King and the Ghost King to collect the fees, but after thinking about it, he felt that he should greet Bai Chongchun first. He obediently arrived outside the house where Bai Chongchun was sitting, bowed and said, "Master, disciple doesn't have enough spirit stones to plant the lack flame profound fruit tomorrow. Can disciple go?" Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Bai Chongchun. "I've already told you before, you can ask for spirit stones from any Demon King or Ghost King in the Demon Ghost domain. In the future, you don't have to look for me for such matters. You can handle it yourself. In short, you can't lose the lack flame profound fruit." Ah. Disciple understands. Disciple will do it now. Yu Qianqiu respectfully retreated. After walking a little further with a chong sound, his sword was unsheathed, turning into a stream of light that carried him far away. Only after flying far away did the respect on Yu Qianqiu's face turn into a wretched smile. He looked at the demon ghost domain in the distance, which was densely packed with worry. He stepped on the sword, waved his sleeves, put his hands behind his back, and increased his flying speed. He was a little impatient. Chapter 296. Flying out of the 1,000-mile lake, he immediately felt like he was in another world. The sunlight from before was already far behind him, and the dark and strange atmosphere caused the temperature to drop a few degrees. Yu Qianqiu stood on his sword and stopped in the air, looking around with a strange expression. He was anxious, and didn't know where he had gone. Between the mountains, there was an abundance of vegetation, ancient trees, and wisteria. All kinds of ancient and strange plants were densely packed together. Based on his previous life's logic, it was hard to understand why there was such an abundance of vegetation in this place that never saw the sun. All kinds of strange cries came from all directions, and the strange atmosphere reminded him of the first time he came to the demon ghost region with the various sects for training. At that time, some people wanted to fly in the demon ghost region with their swords, but before they could fly far, they were swallowed by the red light that suddenly appeared. Just thinking about it made him feel uneasy. Although he was here under the name of Bai Chongchun, no one here knew him. What if some demon or ghost made a mistake and killed him? Safety first. Yu Qianqiu lowered his flying altitude, and slowly flew about 2 to 3 meters above the ground. He carefully flew through the dark forest. The vegetation that passed by him was clearly lush, but it gave people a feeling of lifelessness, which made him even more careful. After flying for a short while, Yu Qianqiu suddenly stopped. His nostrils flared, and he smelled a rich fragrance. It should be the fragrance of a flower. Could it be that his luck was so good that he encountered some rare spirit grass the moment he arrived? Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. His body flashed, and he passed through a gap between the vines. He flew his sword towards the source of the fragrance, and went deeper into the forest. The fragrance became stronger, and the strange noises gradually lessened. Before he saw the spirit grass that he had imagined, he first heard a series of pi pi pa 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 sounds of fighting. That's right, it should be the sound of fighting. Yu Qianqiu was stunned for a moment. He placed his feet on the sword and squatted down gently. He nestled on the sword and slowly flew towards the place where the fight was taking place. The way he flew on the sword was indeed not very pleasing to look at. It felt like he was a thief. After flying for a short distance, a beautiful bright yellow suddenly appeared in front of him. Huge yellow flowers rose from the ground. Just the flowers alone were like huge millstones, and they were as tall as a person. That alluring fragrance was coming from the flowers. Yu Qianqiu was quite shocked. He had never thought that there would be such a large flower in this world. It was simply inconceivable. As expected of the devil domain, there were all sorts of strange things. Peach Blossom, I think you should just follow me. Hee hee. A burst of strange laughter came, followed by a clear woman's laughter and scolding. You dare to have ideas on this ferry? Old Monster Teng, aren't you afraid that Grandma Teng will pull out your root of life? Fairy? Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. Could it be that there were beauties here? He was no longer in the mood to appreciate the huge yellow flowers. Instead, he used the big yellow flowers as a cover and moved towards the place where the fight was taking place. After getting close, he hid behind a yellow flower and secretly peeked at the fight not far away with shifty eyes. In a spacious area, green whip shadows and pink flower shadows danced in the air. An old man stood motionless. He was covered with rattan branches, but this was not the strangest thing. Several rattan whips stretched out from his back, making whooshing sounds. His opponent was a pink-clothed woman. Her graceful figure danced in the shadows of the whip, and her slender fingers constantly scattered peach blossoms in front of her to protect her body. Occasionally, she could also shoot branches at her opponent. Damn it! So it was a fight between two fairies. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows disapprovingly, but he still watched patiently. This was the first time he saw fairies fighting. He watched with great interest, but he did not notice that a big yellow flower behind him had quietly turned around. The petals, which were already big, were slowly opening up, facing Yu Qianqiu as if it was opening its bloody mouth. Yu Qianqiu was still hiding behind another yellow flower, peeking with his butt up, completely unaware of the movement behind him. Hard work paid off. After the pink-clothed woman flipped around a few times, Yu Qianqiu finally saw the woman's pretty face. She was wearing a palace dress and her gauze dress fluttered in the wind. She was indeed a beautiful fairy. However, this female fairy did not seem to be a match for the old monster. Every time she released a protective petal, it would be smashed by the old monster's rattan whip. The branches that she shot out were also easily broken by the old monster's extra rattan whip. The two of them were not on the same level at all. The old monster was clearly teasing the demoness with ease, but the demoness was frightened and panting. She was so tired that she was sweating profusely and panting. Peach Blossom, I advise you not to resist pointless. What's wrong with obeying me? The old monster cackled. The rattan vines that stretched out from behind him made him look like a spider in a spider's web. Although the demoness was at her wit's end, she still managed to catch her breath and said with a smile, "If you want me to obey you, that's fine, but I'm not going to be a servant. Old monster Tang, I'll be yours the moment you kill Tang Pa. I'm afraid you won't dare. Who doesn't know that you're famous for being afraid of your wife?" As soon as these words came out, the old monster could not laugh anymore. Instead, he felt embarrassed and angry. He shouted, "It's your fortune that I like you. Today, you have to obey me even if you don't want to." As he said that, the rattan whip became fiercer and fiercer. The female fairy was already in a precarious situation. A certain person hiding behind the yellow flower finally understood the reason and could not help but snicker. It turned out that even a fairy would find a mistress behind her wife's back. Yu Qianqiu pinched his chin with one hand and considered whether he should go out and save the damsel in distress. As he was pondering, he suddenly cried out, "F***CK." A yellow shadow flashed and his vision turned black. He was already trapped inside something. Yu Qianqiu immediately threw a few punches, but with his cultivation, he was unable to break the thing that trapped him. Then, in the darkness, a few more things that were as tough as ropes wrapped around him and tightened around him. There was even one that wrapped around his neck and a stinky liquid sprayed on his body. His strange cry immediately disturbed the two fighting fairies. The two demons temporarily stopped and retreated. They looked at the yellow flower that was wrapped up not far away, and saw that it was violently shaking. The female fairy, who was panting, frowned. Just as she took a step forward, she stopped and looked back at the old monster. From the looks of it, it was obvious that he wanted to go over and rescue her, but he was afraid of being ambushed. The old monster snorted coldly and said, "Where did this reckless junior come from? You actually dare to pry into this old man's privacy." As he spoke, a vine whip behind him pierced straight towards the yellow flower. Right at this moment, the yellow flower suddenly exploded with a bang. Rays of sharp, cold light shot out from inside and shot into the sky. The yellow flower was instantly torn into pieces. Pa pa pa. F***CK. This is a man-eating flower. Yu Qianqiu jumped out from inside and repeatedly spat out the thing that entered his mouth. He didn't know what it was, but it didn't taste good. Even the gallbladder was almost spat out. He wiped the stinky and slippery liquid off his face. Before he could finish speaking, he saw the vine whip attacking him and stabbing towards his chest. Yu Qianqiu's first reaction was to grab the vine whip that was stabbing towards his chest. The two ends of the whip, one human and one demon, immediately began to fight. How refreshing. It's actually a human late-stage core formation cultivator. Strange. Little child, you actually managed to break into this place. With the old monster's cultivation, he naturally couldn't see through Yu Qianqiu's cultivation. However, as soon as the two sides fought, he immediately felt it. The old monster clicked his tongue and laughed. Legend has it that human flesh is incomparably delicious. This old man has never eaten it before. This time, I'm in luck. Hearing the old monster say this, the female fairy also looked at Yu Qianqiu with a face full of surprise. How could someone break into this place? This was the center of the demon domain. Shameless boasting. A mere mid-stage nascent soul old monster dares to speak such arrogant words. You actually want to eat me? This old man thinks that you're tired of living. Yu Qianqiu sneered. With the vine whip in his hand, the other party saw through his cultivation. Naturally, he also saw through the other party's cultivation. He wasn't even afraid of mid-stage tribulation passing cultivators, so why would he be afraid of a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator? What an insolent child, he. The old monster looked up to the sky and laughed. The vine whip in Yu Qianqiu's hand suddenly retracted. Yu Qianqiu immediately used all his strength to pull it back. Unfortunately, his cultivation wasn't as high as the old monster's, so he was dragged by the vine whip and slid down the ground, creating a trench. Chapter 297. The old demon was obviously afraid that Yu Qianqiu would let go. The vine whip in his hand suddenly grew longer and wrapped around Yu Qianqiu's wrist. Once it was pulled up, it moved faster and faster. Yu Qianqiu looked at the vine whip wrapped around his wrist and narrowed his eyes. His expression was calm. The old demon laughed wildly. The vine whip behind him covered the sky and wrapped around Yu Qianqiu. Cut! Yu Qianqiu's hands moved with the sword incantation and he let out a fierce shout. The cold lights that had broken through the yellow man-eating flowers and flew towards the horizon immediately flashed back and mercilessly whistled towards the countless vines that stretched out. With a burst of crackling sounds, a pile of vines immediately fell to the ground. Ah! The vine whips were originally connected to the old demon's body. This slash immediately caused the old demon to scream miserably. The vine whips that were mostly broken retracted. The old demon said in horror, "It's a flying sword. Impossible. How can there be so many flying swords?" Not only him, but the female demon was also shocked. She had never seen or heard of someone who could control so many flying swords at the same time. They were the rising stars of the demon ghost domain. They lived in the center of the demon ghost domain and had never seen anyone, let alone someone who could control so many flying swords. It should be known that demon ghosts rarely used flying swords. They used all kinds of weapons. Only humans would use flying swords. Not to mention, ordinary people couldn't come to the center of the demon ghost domain. Naturally, the two demons had never seen it before. The flying swords cut through the countless vines and immediately returned to Yu Qianqiu's side. More than 100 flying swords danced around him, and a cold light lingered in this lush greenery. It was a spectacular scene with extraordinary momentum. Yu Qianqiu expressionlessly pulled off the vine that bound his wrist and cut off the connection with the old demon. He coldly snorted and said, "A mere old demon dares to make trouble in front of me. I say, you are tired of living." The old demon, who had suffered a loss, angrily shouted, "Hey! Ignorant junior, how dare you be so arrogant in my demon ghost region? I'll show you how powerful this old man is." With a wave of his hands, the ground shook and countless vines burst out of the ground, crazily sweeping towards Yu Qianqiu. The beautiful face of the female fairy who was watching the battle from the side immediately paled, and she was accidentally wrapped up by the vines that came sweeping over. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her indifferently and did not make any move to save her. He stared at the old monster and sneered, "In your demon domain? You actually dare to say such words in front of me? You've got guts." Even when he was with Bai Chongqun, he had never said such words. Now that he heard an old monster say it, he naturally found it funny. Using the finger-driving sword art, a flying sword lifted him a few meters off the ground. The vines that were trying to wrap around him were immediately cut down by the other flying swords. The old monster's formation was indeed frightening. There seemed to be an endless number of vines spreading out from the ground, densely surrounding the open space. They constantly whistled, whipped, and stabbed at Yu Qianqiu from all directions. However, Yu Qianqiu did not panic at all. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood a few meters above the ground on his flying sword. He sneered, "Old monster, I want to see if your vines are endless." Today, this old man will cut you down until your vitality is greatly damaged. Among the dancing vines, a cold light flashed like lightning. They were extremely fast. If one came, they would be cut down. If two came, they would be cut down. No matter how many came, the nearly 100 flying swords could deal with them easily. They did not give the vines a chance to get close. Originally, according to Yu Qianqiu's temper, he wanted to burn all the vines with a green fire. However, ever since he modified the Guiyuan sword art, it was the first time he had used it so happily. Finally, his efforts were put to use. Therefore, he suppressed the thought of using the green fire. However, the old monster was in a bit of a predicament. It was not that his cultivation was inferior to Yu Qianqiu's, but the sword art that Yu Qianqiu cultivated was simply his nemesis. No matter how many vines he moved like the wind, Yu Qianqiu's sword moved like lightning and broke through his array of vines with ease. Looking at Yu Qianqiu, who was standing with his arms crossed and had a mocking expression, the old monster felt that he could not take it anymore. If this continued, it would really be as Yu Qianqiu said. He would definitely be cut down until his vitality was greatly damaged. There was no other way. This kid's sword art was his nemesis. The only thing he could do now was to leave first. A trace of resentment flashed across the old monster's face. He said, "Little kid, don't be too proud. This demon domain is not a place for you to be arrogant. This old man has something to do, so I will leave first. I will find you another day to settle the score." With that said, the dense vines in the surroundings all burrowed back into the ground. In a few blinks of an eye, they were all gone. The old demon turned around and scurried into the forest not far behind him. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He sneered and said, "Old shameless thing. You are really shameless. You can't win, so you run. You even dare to say nice words. I will let you run." With a point of the driving sword art, the flying swords immediately swarmed towards the escaping old monster. The old monster turned his head and was shocked. His 10 fingers immediately turned into 10 thick vine whips to block the flying swords. They quickly tangled with the flying swords. The vine whips formed by his 10 fingers were really powerful. The flying swords actually had a hard time cutting them. However, the old monster was still crying out in pain. Yu Qianqiu flew away on his flying sword. He was too lazy to fight with the old monster. Under his control, the flying sword shot through the gaps between the 10 thick vine whips, focusing on the old monster's body. The vine whips were thick and could be resisted. However, they were also clumsy. They simply could not stop so many flying swords from entering. A few holes immediately appeared on the old monster's body. Thick green liquid flowed out. The old monster screamed again and again. Suddenly, he let out a loud roar and let the flying swords pierce his body. The 10 vine whips in his arms broke off and shot out, knocking away many flying swords. The old monster's aura was very shocking. He fiercely attacked Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. The old monster was going all out. A group of flying swords immediately flashed back to block. The flying sword under his feet flashed and carried him up into the sky to avoid the vine whips. After flashing into the sky, Yu Qianqiu immediately realized something was wrong. He saw that after the old monster forced him away, it had shrunk into a pile. Its head and limbs were all gone. They had all shrunk into its body. Its body had turned into a pile of vines on the ground. Yu Qianqiu swooped down and pointed with his finger. The group of flying swords surged forward and picked up the pile of vines. The old monster had already disappeared. A hole had appeared below. He quickly released his divine sense to investigate, and immediately felt a ball of vitality escaping from the hole. Yu Qianqiu quickly glanced at the 10 thick vines on the ground. This old monster was obviously learning from a lizard and cutting off its tail to survive. He, on the other hand, was cutting off his fingers to survive. The old monster could escape underground. Want to run? Not so easy. Yu Qianqiu shouted and pointed with his sword. Dozens of flying swords flew into the hole at lightning speed. Following the guidance of his divine sense, they chased after the old monster. A moment later, a mournful scream came from the hole. Clearly, the old monster had been severely injured again. However, because Yu Qianqiu's cultivation wasn't high enough, the range of his divine sense was limited. In addition, it went too deep into the ground, which more or less affected the release of his divine sense. The flying swords were no longer able to continue chasing after the old monster. "Brat, you will regret this." The old monster's voice was faintly coming from the hole. "Regret?" Yu Qianqiu's face darkened. He raised his hand and called back dozens of flying swords from the hole. Close to 100 cold gleams twined around his body. His expression was indeed a little ugly. "I didn't provoke you, but you provoked me first. How can I let you go?" Yu Qianqiu coldly glanced at the female monster that was still tightly bound by the vines. He pointed with 2 fingers and a few cold gleams shot out, removing the vines on the female monster. After the female monster was freed, she looked around. Suddenly, she was surrounded by dozens of flying swords. Yu Qianqiu floated in the air and said in a deep voice, "Where is the main body of that old monster? Don't tell me you don't know. If you don't want to die, tell me quickly." No matter how far the plants and other spiritual monsters ran, they couldn't run away like animals and other spiritual monsters. They couldn't run away from the ground. This was something Yu Qianqiu knew, so he asked. The beautiful seductress in pink clothes glanced at the rattan that had fallen all around. Her gaze finally fell on the 10 thick rattan that had fallen off. Her bright eyes lit up and she immediately bowed to Yu Qianqiu. "Mister, that rattan monster was severely injured by Mister. It must have returned to its nest under the cliff of the western mountain. This little demon is willing to lead the way for Mister." Yu Qianqiu nodded and put away the flying swords that surrounded her. Suddenly he said, "Wait a moment." He rode his sword and flew to the front of the hundreds of large yellow man-eating flowers. The flying sword that was circling around his body flashed out, and wherever the cold light passed, the man-eating flowers were shot into pieces. What was strange was that when these man-eating flowers were destroyed, they actually let out ear-piercing jiu-jiu sounds. Yu Qianqiu frowned when he heard this. He waved his hand, and the flying sword flew out again. He only stopped after cutting down all the man-eating flowers from their roots. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of rare man-eating flowers had been completely cut down. He flew back on his sword and said coldly to the female monster, "Lead the way." Chapter 298. The two of them headed west. Yu Qianqiu rode on his sword and followed behind the female demon. That female demon's graceful figure did not touch the ground, only stepping on the grass. She looked light as a feather, but her speed was extremely fast, making Yu Qianqiu feel extremely amazed. She was literally flying on the grass. She seemed even more graceful than flying on grass. Her slender figure, pink clothes, and even her shoes were petite pink. The grass swayed with her feet and carried her far away. Her hair flew in the air and her pink clothes matched the grass. She was very beautiful. Grass elves really had a unique advantage. Yu Qianqiu suddenly asked, "What kind of monster is that old demon?" The female demon replied timidly, "He is an ancient vine spirit that has cultivated for 1,000 years. People around here call him Old Monster Tang." She wasn't a match for the vine monster, and now, the man in front of her could even beat the vine monster into fleeing. He even wanted to chase it to its lair. With this ability, it was naturally not a problem for him to deal with her, so it wasn't strange for her to be afraid. Oh, no wonder he uses vines as weapons. The female demon's words confirmed his guess. He looked at the slender figure and said with interest, "I heard Old Monster Tang call you Peach Blossom. Could you be a peach blossom tree spirit?" The female demon softly said, "Mister's guess is correct. I am a peach blossom tree spirit that has cultivated for 1,000 years. Peach Blossom, you and that old demon have both cultivated for 1,000 years. Why aren't you a match for him?" Yu Qianqiu asked. "Although he and I have both cultivated for 1,000 years, he transformed into a human 200 years ago. I just reached the nascent soul stage not long ago and am not good at fighting. Naturally, I am not a match for him," the Peach Blossom demon replied. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly. He had heard about this from Bai Suzhen. In the demon race, it was even more difficult for grass and wood spirits to cultivate. Unlike animals, it was extremely difficult for grass and wood spirits to cultivate. Without intelligence, how could grass and wood spirits cultivate? Therefore, it was even more difficult for them to become spirits. In order to reach the stage where they could transform into humans, all demons had to reach the nascent soul stage. Most of the plants would eventually wither and die without being able to gather their spiritual wisdom to cultivate. Even if they could cultivate, it would be difficult for them to transform into a human form even after thousands of years of cultivation. Among human cultivators, even those at the end of the Tribulation transcendent stage would die of old age. As the saying goes, where there are gains, there are losses. Although the heavens were unfair, they were actually quite fair. Compared to humans, demons, and ghosts, plant spirits were the most difficult to cultivate. However, as long as they could break through to the deity transformation final stage, it was said that the heavenly tribulations were the weakest, and they would almost always be able to ascend to the immortal realm. Since you can't beat him, why didn't you agree to Monster Tang's request? Yu Qianqiu smiled. If I didn't refuse, I would have died a long time ago, the peach blossom said in a low voice. Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, why is that? His thoughts went astray. Could it be that Monster Tang knew some method to absorb Yin to replenish Yang? Could it be that he would suck his mating partner dry? How did the two plant demons mate? The peach blossom bit her lip and said, Sir, you should be careful. Monster Tang has a wife called Tang Pa. Her cultivation is higher than Monster Tang's. She has reached the nascent soul stage and is the subordinate of the Monster King, Miss Mu. Although she didn't answer him directly, Yu Qianqiu understood. He reckoned that Tang Pa was a jealous woman and couldn't tolerate her husband having other women. He thought for a while and asked, what kind of demon is the Demon King Madame Mu? Is she the Monster King in charge of this place? Miss Mu is a magnolia demon. Her cultivation has reached the tribulation stage. She is the Monster King in charge of this place. Oh, Yu Qianqiu said. He thought, why are there only plant spirits here? Looking around he understood. The plants here were much more exuberant than other places in the demon ghost territory. It was a good place for plant spirits. Speaking of Miss Mu, he thought of the 3 saints of Lingwu who had been killed. One of them, Red Lady, was definitely a coquettish and beautiful demon. He just didn't know what Miss Mu looked like. As he thought about it, an idea flashed in his mind. Don't I have a demon-revealing mirror? I didn't use it before because Bai Suzhen is also a demon. Isn't it suitable in the demon ghost territory? Let's try it. Yu Qianqiu immediately took out the delicate demon-revealing mirror. From the chain on it, it could be seen that this treasure should be hung around the neck. After wearing it around his neck, he looked at the peach blossom in front of him with the mirror. He didn't find anything. After he injected his divine sense into it, he finally found a magical effect. It turned out that he used his divine sense to look through the demon-revealing mirror. The peach blossom seen by his divine sense in the mirror was no longer a graceful woman. A peach tree full of flowers appeared clearly in the demon-revealing mirror. A divine craftsman was indeed a divine craftsman. The things he made were really magical. Yu Qianqiu sighed. After withdrawing his divine sense from the mirror, he felt that the small bronze mirror hanging on his neck was a little ugly. It was no different from the longevity lock hanging on the neck of a secular child. So he stuffed the mirror into the lapel on his chest and injected his divine sense into the peach blossom again. Fortunately, it could still show the original shape of the peach blossom. Good stuff. He touched his chest and found that the demon-revealing mirror was hanging there. Along the way, they constantly encountered some of the largest groups in the demon ghost realm. They were the blood wolves that Yu Qianqiu had seen when he first came here. This kind of fierce animal was not afraid of death. Yu Qianqiu had dealt with them before. He knew that if they attracted companions, although he was not afraid, it would be a troublesome thing. So without saying anything, he killed every wolf he saw. He didn't even give them a chance to make a sound. This action made the peach blossom a little frightened. After coming out of the dense forest, the front suddenly opened up. A few hundred meters away, a tall stone mountain seemed to have been split into 2 halves. One half was intact, and the other half seemed to have been moved away. Green vines spread everywhere at the foot of the mountain, covering the entire foot of the mountain. Yu Qianqiu pointed to the mountain wall in front of him and asked, "This is the West Mountain Cliff you mentioned? Is this the hiding place of the old demon?" "Yes." The peach blossom looked around timidly and said, "Sir, please be careful. If the vine woman is here, it will be troublesome." TSK. This stone mountain seems to have been split by someone. The power of nature is really amazing. It is not something that can be done by human beings. Yu Qianqiu looked at the smooth stone wall and sighed. He looked like he was looking at the scenery. As for the Vine Woman, he was not afraid of her. Since she was the subordinate of the Demon King who was in charge of this place, she would not dare to do anything to the disciple of Bai Chongqun. Sir, the formation of this stone wall is not the power of nature. It is indeed the work of human beings. It was split by a sword, the peach blossom reminded him softly. Ah! Yu Qianqiu immediately opened his mouth and was stunned. This stone wall was probably 700 or 800 meters high and 300 or 400 meters wide. Moreover, it was a mountain of pure stone. Could someone split the whole mountain with a sword? Isn't this too inconceivable? He asked in disbelief. It was split by a sword? That's impossible. Did you see it with your own eyes? I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but this is something that everyone in this area knows. The peach blossom looked around guiltily, bit her lip, and slowly said while looking at the stone wall. It is said that more than 1,000 years ago, the Blood Wolf clan was the most powerful existence in the Demon Ghost region. At that time, the Blood Wolf Emperor had broken through to the soul formation stage, and he had the largest group in the entire Demon Ghost region. Thus, he was disloyal and did not want to be restrained by the Torture Master. As a result, he fought with the Torture Master here and was killed by the Torture Master. This stone wall was split by the Torture Master's sword during that battle. The other half of the mountain was shattered, and the Blood Wolf Emperor was buried under the rubble. If you remove the green vines all over the field, you will find that it is full of rubble. Yu Qianqiu looked at the half of the stone wall, a little confused. More than 1,000 years ago? At that time, Bai Chongqun should have already taken over as the Torture Master of the Demon Ghost region. He swallowed and asked, "That battle? The Torture Master you are talking about is Immortal Master Bai who is now on Shuntian Island?" "Yes, Immortal Master Bai. After that battle, I heard that Immortal Master Bai was angered, and then..." The peach blossom seemed to realize that she had said too much. She looked around guiltily and did not dare to continue. However, Yu Qianqiu was eager to know what Bai Chongqun did after that, so he urged, "What happened after that? Tell me quickly." He urged, but the peach blossom did not dare to speak. In the end, after being threatened by Yu Qianqiu, she could not help but say, "After that battle, the Torture Master was furious. All the Blood Wolf clan members with a bit of cultivation, more than 400,000 of them, were all killed by the Torture Master in one night. At that time, there was a demon and a ghost in the Demon Ghost region who had also reached the soul formation stage, but because of that incident, they were also implicated. The Torture Master said that they were the ones who started it and wanted the two soul formation stage cultivators to kill themselves to atone for their crimes. Of course, the demon and the ghost refused, so the Torture Master fought the two of them alone and killed them. From then on, except for the Torture Master, there were no other soul formation stage cultivators in the entire Demon Ghost region. Mister, this is all I know. I really don't know anything else." Yu Qianqiu stared blankly at the stone wall and nodded his head. So this mountain was Bai Chongqun's masterpiece, and it was actually split apart by a single sword strike. His cultivation was just too terrifying, killing more than 400,000 blood wolves in one night. Ruthless. Ruthless beyond belief. Also, one person killed two soul formation stage cultivators at the same time. Those were two soul formation stage cultivators. The scene of that battle was so thrilling that it was hard to describe. One soul formation stage cultivator killed two soul formation stage cultivators at the same time. Wow! He was really powerful and ruthless. No wonder all the demons and ghosts in the Demon Ghost region trembled in fear at the mention of Bai Chongqun's name and didn't even dare to speak loudly. Who would dare to speak loudly in front of such a killing god? No wonder Healy said that he was merciless towards demons and ghosts and killed without mercy. He really wasn't joking. This Immortal Master Bai is really amazing, hee. Yu Qianqiu squeezed out a smile. After knowing about Bai Chongqun's glorious deeds, he was really scared. He only hoped that he didn't see through his little tricks. If he angered this killing god, with his cultivation level, he might not even be able to escape. Chapter 299. However, after thinking about it, he understood Bai Chongqun's difficulties. Think about it, in this vast demon realm, demons and ghosts ran amok. If there was no one to restrain them, what would happen? If all these things broke into the human world, then the so-called cultivation world would not be able to stop such a huge force. At that point, the human world would be in chaos. To restrain these demons and ghosts, it would be useless to reason with them. Often, iron and blood methods would be more effective. Bai Chongqun was in charge of the demon realm. It seemed that he had killed countless people, but in fact, he had saved more lives. After thinking it through, Yu Qianqiu's fear turned into admiration. Think about it, other soul formation stage cultivators did not want to be tied down by anything, but Bai Chongqun abandoned his family and ended up being tied down by this demon realm for nearly 2,000 years. His responsibility was great, and his actions were respectable. Yu Qianqiu was a little depressed. He had racked his brains to obtain the position of punishment envoy, but once he really took it, the burden on his shoulders would be immense. To put it nicely, he would have to shoulder the welfare of all living beings in the world. Whatever, he would get it first. If it didn't work, he would find someone else to take over. Yu Qianqiu thought it through in a blink of an eye. He looked around and asked, "Peach Blossom, where is the real body of the old demon hiding?" "I don't know the specific location, but it must be hidden in the green vines under this stone cliff," Peach Blossom said a little uneasily. "I see." Yu Qianqiu frowned. The green vines all looked the same. Who knew which one was under it? Without thinking too much, his figure flashed, and he flew above the green vines on his sword. He released his divine sense to check each place. He believed that this old demon who had cultivated for 1,000 years must be a little different from the other green vines. After checking, he was shocked. As Peach Blossom said, there were stones of different sizes under the green vines. It was probably the result of the half of the stone mountain being shattered. The green vines all grew out of the cracks in the stones. Even if he found the hiding place of the old demon, if it didn't come out, he would really have to spend some effort to dig it out. Starting from the place where the two of them were standing, he swept back and forth with his divine sense. After a few rounds, he found something wrong under the stone wall. At this time, the green vines within a radius of tens of meters grew from one tree. It would be strange if they didn't have such a huge branch. "Old demon, get out here." Yu Qianqiu stared down and shouted. The other flying swords that he had put into the storage bag flew out again and danced around him. However, after calling a few times, there was no response from below. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows. More than a dozen flying swords shot out and slashed at the entangled old vine below. After slashing, he was even more sure that he found the right place. It often took a few slashes to cut off a vine. If it wasn't a demon, ordinary green vines wouldn't be so hard. "All right, you don't want to come out, right? Fine, as long as you don't feel bad, I will cut slowly." Yu Qianqiu chuckled and sent out more than a dozen flying swords. Suddenly, there was a continuous sound of ding dang dang dang. Dozens of flying swords rose and fell and slashed continuously. He was standing in the air watching the show with interest. Suddenly, there was a loud shout from afar. "Who is it? How dare you hurt my body? Stop right now." The voice was sharp and anxious. It was a woman's voice. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Did he make a mistake? The flying swords that were slashing wildly below returned to his side. After a while, a figure quickly flew over. He saw an old woman appear in front of him. She was dressed in hemp clothes and looked old. Her hair was tied up with a few green vines and she held a cane in her hand. "Who are you? I have no grievances with you. Why did you hurt my body?" The old woman pointed at him and shouted angrily. Peach Blossom, who was standing in the distance, saw the old woman coming and quietly retreated into the forest. Yu Qianqiu looked at the vine that had been chopped into a mess and asked doubtfully, "You are Tingpa? Since you know it's me, then you are deliberately looking for trouble." Tangpa held the cane in her hand and was about to attack. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly waved his hand and said, "It's a misunderstanding. It's definitely a misunderstanding. I didn't do it on purpose. Old woman, you have to avenge me." At this moment, old monster Ting appeared out of nowhere. He raised his palms that had lost all 10 fingers and looked pitiful. Yu Qianqiu looked back and his expression sank. He sneered and said, "Old thing, not hiding anymore?" Tangpa looked at her man's palms and was so angry that her body trembled. "You did it? Humph. Old woman, don't be anxious. First find out who did it." "That's right, Your man is looking for a concubine outside behind your back. To think that you are still so protective of him. I even brought the victim who was bullied by your husband. Peach Blossom, HM? Peach Blossom? Yu Qianqiu called out a few times but did not respond. He turned his head and looked around. That female demon had already disappeared. She had actually abandoned him and fled. Yu Qianqiu was not angry. Instead, he sneered and said, "What a little demon who doesn't know what's good for her." He then pointed at old monster Tang and Tang Pa and said, "And you guys, I think you are all tired of living." When Tang Pa heard Yu Qianqiu say that her man was looking for a concubine, she immediately turned her gaze to old monster Tang. However, old monster Tang's eyes flashed. He shouted, "Old woman, what are you hesitating for? Let's work together and kill this little thief." After saying this, he raised his arms. His missing 10 fingers immediately turned into 2 long whips that were as thick as a person's thighs. He ruthlessly smashed them toward Yu Qianqiu, who was standing on his sword. Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "Hee hee. Very good. Very good." He immediately dodged to the side. The 2 long whips missed. With a loud bang, the whips smashed the 2 rocks below him into pieces. Then, he shot up like a snake and swept across the sky at Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu jumped a few meters from the flying sword. The 2 long whips chased after him and brushed past his feet. The flying sword below him circled around and caught Yu Qianqiu again. Yu Qianqiu flicked his hand and pointed. Sword shadows danced and flashed. Almost 100 flying swords shot toward old monster Tang. Old monster Tang was shocked and withdrew his 2 whips to protect himself. The 2 whips twisted and flicked wildly, immediately knocking away many flying swords. However, there were still many flying swords that passed through. Old monster Tang was so frightened that he cried out. He used his 2 whips as crutches and propped himself up into the sky. Tang Po's eyes flashed. No one knew what she was thinking. She saw that her man was being forced into such a state, but she still did not help. "Go!" Yu Qianqiu lightly shouted with his fingers. The flying swords that were dodged immediately reversed and shot back toward old monster Tang. The latter screamed and dodged in the air. Unfortunately, his speed was slowed down by the 2 huge whips in his hands. A few flying swords still nailed into his thighs. Old monster Tang let out a miserable cry in the air. "Separate!" Yu Qianqiu lightly sang with his fingers again. The flying swords that were nailed into old monster Tang's thighs twisted wildly. They pierced through his thighs and shot in all directions. Old monster Tang let out another miserable cry. One of his thighs was cut off by the flying swords and fell from the sky. A green liquid exploded from the base of his thighs and slowly dripped down in the air. "My leg!" Old monster Tang cried out in sorrow. His arms that had turned into 2 whips went limp. He fell beside Tang Pa and supported himself with 1 leg. He turned around and shouted angrily, "Stupid old woman, do you really want me to die in front of you? Ah, it's coming again." A group of flying swords circled in the air and shot toward him again. Tang Pa coldly snorted. After all, this was her man. She finally made her move. She swung the vine staff in her hand, and it crashed into the group of flying swords. Ding ding dang dang sounds rang out. The flying swords were immediately scattered. Then, the vine staff spun around and whistled toward Yu Qianqiu. As for the remaining few flying swords, Tang Pa unhurriedly untied the rattan belt around her waist. She raised her hand and shook it. With a whoosh, it turned into a long whip. Tang Pa swung it out like a snake and swept it towards the few flying swords that were shooting at her. Chapter 300. The whip rose into the air like a divine dragon swinging its tail. It was extremely nimble and created several whip shadows that clashed with the flying swords. Dang-dang sounds were heard as the flying swords were immediately deflected away. Yu Qianqiu was startled by the whistling vine staff. The vine staff was like Jiang Ziya's god-beating whip. He quickly dodged it with his flying sword. Although he managed to dodge it, the strong wind brought by the vine staff made his clothes flutter. If he was hit by it, he would be smashed down from the sky. The vine staff missed its target, so it rolled and bounced up. It aimed at its target and smashed down again. Yu Qianqiu immediately summoned his flying sword to fight it. Unfortunately, the flying sword could not win at all. The vine staff had probably been refined into a high-grade magic tool. Someone was immediately chased by the vine staff and was forced to run around in the air. Old Monster Tang, who was missing a leg, laughed sinisterly on the ground. A new leg slowly grew out from his broken leg in a very disgusting manner. Although the new leg had grown out, Old Monster Tang's face was a lot paler. This was obviously an action that consumed a lot of yuan qi. Gather! Yu Qianqiu shouted while he was hiding. The scattered flying swords quickly flew over with his 2 fingers as the center. They gathered into the shape of an umbrella and rotated in the air 2 meters away from his fingertips. The vine staff smashed down again. Yu Qianqiu waved his finger and the umbrella sword shield immediately blocked it. Bang! The two collided and the sword shield was destroyed on the spot. The vine staff flipped and bounced up. It paused for a moment in the air before smashing down again. Damn! Yu Qianqiu let out a strange cry and pointed with his 2 fingers. The 99 flying swords once again gathered into a sword shield to block. The 2 sides collided and a bang! Sound was heard again. Thus, a dramatic scene appeared in the air. One kept smashing down from all angles, while the other kept blocking from all angles. Immediately, Yu Qianqiu found himself in a very difficult situation. His 2 fingers continuously gathered the shattered flying swords and used them as shields. He blocked left and right in the air, blocking in all directions. Fortunately, the 2 demons had not reached the tribulation stage yet. Otherwise, Yu Qianqiu would not have been able to withstand the opponent's attacks. Resisting head-on in the air like this caused his true essence to be rapidly consumed. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly took out a few qi returning pills and placed them in his mouth like he was chewing beans, swallowing them dry to recover his true essence. His face became more and more gloomy, and from time to time, 2 jumping green flames flashed in his eyes. It was just that he couldn't see it. He probably wanted to use the green flames that he had been suppressing. It seemed that he had to put aside the idea of practicing the Imperial Sword technique. I didn't expect a core formation cultivator to be able to use the sword control technique so skillfully. Tang Pa looked at the sky and couldn't help but praise. For a core formation cultivator to be able to resist the combined attacks of 2 nascent soul cultivators was already quite impressive. She then turned around and asked, "Old man, who is this young man? How did he get here? Who the hell knows who he is? I don't care so much. Let's kill him and take revenge first." Old Monster Tang said with a sinister expression. On the treetop of a nearby forest stood a woman in a pink dress. Her hair was tied up in a high bun, and her face was cold and beautiful. She appeared exceptionally noble. Behind her stood 2 women in pink clothes of the same color, but the 2 of them were far inferior to the former in terms of temperament. The 3 women silently stood on the treetop and watched the battle not far away. The hem of their dresses fluttered in the wind. Who is this young man? How did he get here? The woman with the noble temperament suddenly asked the same question as Tang Pa. The woman on her right replied, "Lady, I don't know either." Tang Pa suddenly felt that someone was destroying her body, so she hurried over. Tang Pa didn't say anything else. The noble woman frowned and said, "That's strange. That young man seems to be having a hard time fighting. His cultivation is only at core formation. A mere core formation cultivator wouldn't even be able to enter the outskirts of the demon realm. How did he get here?" The woman on the left was confused and said, "That's right. This place isn't far from the 1,000-mile lake. Could he be from Obedient Island? Could he be the disciple of the torture envoy?" Her words were just a casual guess, but the expressions of the other 2 people changed drastically. The woman on the right shook her head and said, "That's impossible. The cultivation of that torture envoy is unfathomable. How could his disciple be so useless? Didn't that Heli also have the cultivation of the middle stage of passing calamity?" The noble woman's expression softened and she nodded and said, "That's right. No matter how useless the torture envoy's disciple is, his cultivation shouldn't be so weak. If Yu Qianqiu heard someone say this about him, he would definitely vomit blood in anger. Fortunately, he didn't hear it. He was fighting fiercely in the air, and the more he fought, the angrier he became. The 2 of them attacked him together, and he didn't even have a chance to fight back. He was constantly being suppressed. If Tang Pa attacked him with her whip again, he wouldn't have been able to resist it. Finally, he couldn't play anymore. The feeling of being suppressed by someone else was very uncomfortable. His eyes were suffused with a penetrating green light, and 2 green flames were clearly lit up. The sword shield protecting Yu Qianzhou had just been destroyed by Tang Po's cane when a claw glowing with a demonic green light quickly passed through the flying swords and grabbed the cane, which had exhausted its momentum and was about to return to attack again. At the same time, he stretched out 2 fingers with his other hand, and the shattered flying swords quickly condensed and blocked Curmudgeon Tang's whip. As soon as the sword shield was destroyed, 5 claws glowing with a demonic green light immediately reached out and grabbed the tail of the cane in the same way. The flying sword completed its task, and with a swish, it turned into a cold light and flashed into Yu Qianzhou's storage bag. The moment the cane whip was grabbed by Yu Qianzhou, Curmudgeon Tang on the other end of the cane cried out, "It's scalding me! It's scalding me! Let go, little boy!" His expression twitched as he swung his arm, which had turned into a cane whip. Finally, he couldn't stand it anymore, and he gritted his teeth, leaving a long tail of the cane in Yu Qianzhou's hand, just like the last time he broke his fingers. Tang Pa looked at her old man in surprise, who was jumping around and peeing, and then looked at Yu Qianzhou. The moment her cane was grabbed by Yu Qianzhou, the divine sense attached to it instantly disappeared, and she completely lost contact with the cane. Yu Qianzhou floated in the air, and the things in his hands suddenly ignited with a blue flame. When the flame was extinguished, the things in his hands turned to ashes and were blown away by the wind. The sudden appearance of the 2 blue flames surprised everyone nearby and in the distance. But what surprised them even more was, a smile appeared at the corner of Yu Qianzhou's mouth. As a disciple of Bai Chongqun, someone actually dared to beat him up in the demon ghost region. The more he thought about it, the more he found it interesting. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh and say, "I didn't expect that I, Yu Qianzhou, would receive such a warm welcome from you two when I first arrived here. How can I repay you? Haha." Chapter 301. He might not have felt anything when he said that, but to the others, it was no less than a bolt from the blue. It was enough to make them lose their minds. Yu Qianzhou's voice was not soft. The woman who stood on the treetop like a noble empress clearly heard it, but she still could not believe it. She asked in a trembling voice, "What did he say his name was?" The 2 women behind her turned pale. Their eyes lost focus as they mumbled weakly, "Yu Qianzhou. He's Yu Qianzhou, the disciple of the disciplinary envoy." Instantly, the noble woman's face turned ashen, and she lost all her temperament. "You're Yu Qianzhou?" Tang Po's face was filled with terror. "Who cares what his name is? He won't be leaving here alive today. Don't show any mercy, old woman. Kill him." Old Freak Tang did not learn his lesson after suffering a loss. Seeing that Yu Qianzhou had already put away his flying sword, he swung his 2 whips with a ferocious expression and lashed at the air. "No! Stop!" A few screams rang out at the same time. Unfortunately, Old Freak Tang had already made his move. The disciple of the disciplinary envoy had already announced his name, but someone still dared to make a move. Wasn't this a death wish? It was fine if Old Freak Tang was courting death, but according to the disciplinary envoy's temper, everyone present would probably be implicated. No one would be able to escape. Tang Po was completely flustered. The 3 women on the treetop were confused. The 4 women's minds were blank. They looked on dumbly and forgot to stop Old Freak Tang. As the vine whips approached, Yu Qianzhou narrowed his eyes. Green flames surged around his body, illuminating the gloomy sky with a dazzling green brilliance. There was a person standing in the middle of the green flames. It was a very strange scene. Tang Pa and the 3 women were dumbstruck, and their hearts surged with boundless sorrow. They all asked themselves, how could the punishment envoy's disciple be an ordinary person? Old Freak Tang was shocked to see the strange condition on Yu Qianzhou's body. In addition to that, he heard Grandma Teng's cries from afar. He had a bad feeling about this. He was just about to pull back his whips when he saw Yu Qianzhou shoot out 2 balls of azure flames. In a moment of desperation, he retracted his whip to protect himself, wanting to deflect the incoming flames. Who would have thought that as soon as the 2 whips touched the 2 balls of green flames, it was as if the whips had been doused with kerosene. The green flames quickly spread from the tips of the whips all the way down, turning the 2 whips into ashes. Ah! Old Monster Tang let out a blood-curdling scream. How could the vine whip, which was connected to his body, withstand the pain of the azure fire? However, he hardened his heart. Before the fire reached him, his arms, which had transformed into 2 whips, once again broke off to protect himself. After losing his limbs several times, old Monster Tang's essence was greatly damaged. He trembled in pain as he said, "Old woman, my essence is too exhausted. I can't attack anymore. Help me kill him." "Shut up." Tang Pa shook her head miserably. Her face was filled with pain as the whip in her hand fell to the ground. Speechless, she knelt before Yu Qianqiu. "Old woman, you." Old Monster Ting finally realized that something was wrong. He looked at Yu Qianqiu in horror, then at Tang Pa. When the cries rang out, Yu Qianqiu immediately noticed the 3 people on the treetop. From the actions of Tang Pa and the others, he could tell that his identity was no longer a secret. Yu Qianqiu withdrew the flames around his body and coldly glanced at the forest. He snorted and said, "Do you still need me to invite you over?" The 3 figures quickly flew over and knelt down as soon as they landed. The woman leading them said in fear and trepidation, "Lady Mu greets Mr. We did not know that Mr. was here. Please forgive us." "Greetings, Yao Monarch." When the woman leading them arrived, old Monster Ting immediately knelt down and kowtowed. However, he did not expect that the person he was kowtowing to was his enemy. He was stunned. Tang Pa, who was kneeling beside him, began to weep softly. The 3 women's cultivation levels were not low. From the moment they arrived to the moment they knelt down, they were so fast that Yu Qianqiu did not manage to see their faces clearly. This made Yu Qianqiu, who originally wanted to see if the 3 women were beautiful, a little depressed. He could only put away the flying sword beneath his feet and descend to the ground. He said in a deep voice, "The 3 of you, get up." He did not ask old Monster Tang or Tang Pa to get up. After the 3 of them got up, they did not dare to raise their heads to look at him. Yu Qianqiu could only say again, "You are the Yao Monarch, Lady Mu? I want to see you. The 3 of you, raise your heads." "This little demon is indeed Lady Mu." Lady Mu bowed. She did not dare to call herself a Yao Monarch in front of Yu Qianqiu. The 3 women slowly raised their heads. Their panicked eyes also took the opportunity to observe Yu Qianqiu. Her temperament was good, and she could be considered beautiful. Unfortunately, she could not compare to Bai Suzhen. Her figure was not great either, and she could not compare to Wu Li Xue and the Temptress of 100 Charms. After looking at the 3 of them, Yu Qianqiu came to this conclusion. However, this feeling of raising one's head as a Yao Monarch in the final stages of the Tribulation Transcendence was not bad. If he dared to say such words in the outside world, he would definitely be hunted down. Yu Qianqiu looked at old Monster Tang and Tang Pa with slight disappointment. His gaze gradually turned cold. It was time to settle the score with these 2. He slowly walked in front of the 2 and said coldly, "Old Monster Tang, have I seen you before?" Old Monster Ting shivered and said fearfully, "No, no." "Then, have I offended you before?" "No." "Since I have never seen you before and have never offended you, why did you want to kill me when I saw you fighting with that peach blossom spirit?" "I was confused. I was confused for a moment. I didn't know it was Mr. Please forgive me, Mr." Old Monster Ting kowtowed repeatedly. In fact, he still did not know who this Yu Qianqiu was. However, the actions of Lady Mu and the others were very clear. He could only blame himself for being obsessed with that peach blossom spirit for the past few days. He did not even pay attention to the most important matters in the demon domain. Lady Mu and the others stared at him in unison. So, it was this guy who had caused all this trouble. But of all people, he had to provoke Bai Chongqun's disciple. Wasn't this the same as dragging everyone to die with him? One could imagine the expressions of the women at the moment. "I didn't provoke you. You provoked me first. I'm not wrongly accusing you, am I?" Yu Qianqiu's tone became gloomy. His eyes shone with a green light, causing Lady Mu and the others to shudder. "No." Old Monster Tang replied weakly. Then, he continued to kowtow and beg for mercy. Yu Qianqiu's green eyes turned to Tang Pa. He snorted coldly and said, "I have just cultivated a set of sword kinesis techniques. Since I met you 2, I can use it to practice. Do you 2 think that I am no match for you?" "We don't dare." "No." The 2 of them kowtowed in unison. Yu Qianqiu did not care whether the 2 of them were telling the truth or not. He stretched out his palm and a ball of green flames burst out. A powerful heat suddenly spread in all directions. The two of them immediately sat on the ground, feeling suffocated. Lady Mu and the others could not help but take a few steps back in shock. Their expressions were uncertain. They all had the same thought. What a powerful flame. Even with their cultivation at the end of the tribulation stage, they could not get close to it. If I wanted to kill you too, it would be as easy as flipping my hand, Yu Qianqiu said indifferently as he held the ball of green flames. This time the two of them really believed him. Old Monster Tang shook his head with a pained expression. He withstood the irresistible heat and knelt down with great difficulty. He kowtowed and said, "Mister, this matter was caused by me alone. It has nothing to do with Tang Pa. This lowly demon is willing to die as an apology. I beg Mister to spare Tang Pa." Old man. Tang Pa looked at Old Monster Tang and cried out in relief. Her man was willing to sacrifice his life to save her at the most critical moment. All of the previous unhappiness instantly disappeared. Old Monster Tang was still kowtowing and begging for mercy. "It's too late." Yu Qianqiu lightly spat out these two words. He turned his hand around and clenched his fist. Wang. The green flames surged and instantly engulfed the two of them. In that instant, Tang Pa suddenly threw herself onto Old Monster Tang, who was still kowtowing. It was as if she wanted to block the flames for her man. However, all she got in return were two miserable screams. As Yu Qianqiu indifferently sucked the green flames back into his palm, two piles of ashes appeared on the ground. A gust of wind blew them up and they swirled away. Lady Mu and the other two's pupils shrank. They were shocked by the tyrannical power of the green flames. It had actually burned Tang Pa and Old Monster Tang to ashes in an instant. Who said that plants were heartless? Yu Qianqiu stood with his hands behind his back and watched the ashes float away. Then, he swept his gaze over the green vines and coldly snorted. "I originally wanted to eradicate the two of you, but seeing that you two were so sentimental before you died, I'll let you two be ignorant plants and let the green vines entangle you until you wither. That's me being merciful." "Lady Mu." Yu Qianqiu slowly turned around and said, "There's a peach blossom tree demon. Please capture him for me. I want him alive." Chapter 302. It was a large wooden house built against the mountain. It looked like a bandit's stronghold, and it was very old. In the middle of the house, there was a gurgling stream. This is the place where the ruler of this area, the Demon King Lady Mu, lives? Yu Qianqiu couldn't believe it at first. He had never seen the other ghost king of the demon ghost domain, but he had seen Meng Yan's underground palace. That imposing manner was like that of a local tyrant. This demon king is a little too simple. Could it be that he knows that I'm coming to collect protection fees, so he deliberately made it like this? Damn it, I don't even know how to open my mouth. After Lady Mu confirmed it again and again, he reluctantly believed it. After entering the stronghold, magnolia trees could be seen everywhere. Blooming magnolia were dotted among the green leaves, exuding a fragrance. Along the way, they didn't see many people, and most of them were women. "You only have these few subordinates?" Yu Qianqiu asked as they walked. Lady Mu, who accompanied him and led the way, replied, "Mister, you may not know this, but the spirits of plants are not like the spirits of animals. It's not suitable for them to leave their bodies for a long time. Usually, I only summon them when there's something." "I'm being silly. I'll summon them immediately to greet Mister." "That's not what I meant. There's no need to go through so much trouble." Yu Qianqiu acted like a leader inspecting his work. He waved his hand, suddenly pulled his collar and sniffed, saying, "I was sprayed by the man eating flowers. Do you have a place to take a bath?" "Yes." Lady Mu asked, "Mister, do you want to use a clear spring or a hot spring?" "You have a hot spring here?" "Haha, then let's use a hot spring." As soon as Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, Lady Mu immediately whispered to him, probably arranging for someone to prepare it. After a while, the two came to the largest main hall in the stronghold. It was probably the place where Lady Mu was in charge. The simple and exquisite decoration and the thick pink velvet carpet all reflected a woman's taste. Madame Mu stretched out her hand to lead the way. "Mister, please follow me." Yu Qianqiu nodded his head and followed her out of the back hall. The scene in front of him suddenly became a little more elegant. There was a meandering stream and a few small wooden bridges across it. It gave off the feeling of a small bridge, flowing water and people's houses. Magnolia trees were scattered among them. It was impossible to tell that this was the residence of a demon king. The two of them walked to the front of a cave. The arched semi-oval cave entrance was carved with intricate patterns, all of which were magnolia blooming in various postures. Miss Mu pulled up the pink gauze hanging at the entrance of the cave and said, "This is the place for bathing. The conditions are poor, but this is the only place in the entire village that is slightly better. Please don't take offense." Yu Qianqiu looked at the pink gauze she had pulled up and asked with a strange expression, "Is this where you take a bath?" Lady Mu nodded her head calmly. She had no choice. The other places were even more crude, and the place she used was the best. Therefore, she had no choice but to bring Yu Qianqiu there. Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything and walked in. A 3-meter-wide bathing pool was in the middle of the stone room. After 2 water infusion troughs from different directions met, water was poured into the pool with a goo-goo sound. With a little effort, one could tell that one of the troughs was from a hot spring, while the other was from a clear spring. Presumably, the temperature had been adjusted according to the flow of water. The bright green pool water was slightly steaming, which was very tempting. Yu Qianqiu couldn't wait to take off his clothes. Suddenly, he remembered that Miss Mu was still by his side. He turned around and tugged at his clothes, saying with a smile, "Then I won't stand on ceremony." He signaled for Miss Mu to leave. "I'm going to take a bath." Unexpectedly, Miss Mu nodded and said, "I'll help you take a bath." After saying that, she stretched out her hand to help Yu Qianqiu take off his clothes. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He immediately waved his hand and said, "Miss Mu, you've misunderstood me. That's not what I meant. How could I dare to trouble the Demon King to serve me? You should call 2 servants." Although he was embarrassed to take advantage of Miss Mu, he could still get 2 other women to serve him. That was what he meant. "No problem. It's my good fortune to be able to help you take a bath." As Miss Mu spoke, she stretched out her hand again. Yu Qianqiu pretended to decline her offer. Under the circumstances where it was difficult to refuse, he was stripped naked and went into the water naked. The water temperature was just right. Yu Qianqiu lay comfortably in the pool and let out a moan. He rested his head on his pillow and closed his eyes to enjoy the feeling. Suddenly, he heard the sound of water splashing. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Miss Mu had also stripped herself naked. Her naked body was exposed. 3 words immediately appeared in Yu Qianqiu's mind. Lover's bath. She wants to seduce me. This was his next thought. However, when he looked at the expression on Miss Mu's face, he found that she was calm and her eyes were calm. After she leaned over, she did not make any other pretentious movements. Her slender fingers lifted his feet and began to massage his feet. Moreover, her technique was very professional. It seemed that she often did this kind of thing. Yu Qianqiu found it strange. How could a dignified demon king do this often? He couldn't help but ask, "Miss Mu, how did you become so skilled?" Miss Mu smiled and said, "You may not know this, but I served the previous demon king for more than 300 years. Of course I'm skilled." "Oh," Yu Qianqiu said, then closed his eyes to enjoy it again. Since Miss Mu herself did not care, he did not care either. At first, he still had some perverted thoughts, but they were replaced by the comfortable kneading and moving fingertips. Speaking of which, he still had a certain immunity to beautiful women. The key was that the women he had were all top-notch goods. They had good figures and looks. With Miss Mu's physical condition, she really did not have much attraction for him. The strength of her fingertips was just right. They wandered around every part of his body. After a while, Yu Qianqiu actually fell asleep comfortably. He did not know how long he had slept, but suddenly he was gently woken up. Miss Mu said softly, "Sir, the peach blossom demon has been caught, and the ghost king Yu Yan, who is in charge of the local area, is also waiting to see you in the main hall." Yu Qianqiu's sleepy eyes immediately became clear. He climbed out of the water without hesitation and said, "Let's go and see." Miss Mu followed him out of the water. She took a cotton towel from somewhere and helped him wipe his body. The former enjoyed it calmly. His thinking was very simple. Since it was already like this, there was no need to worry about the two of them being willing. Yu Qianqiu summoned a new set of clothes out of thin air. Miss Mu was slightly stunned when she saw it, but immediately helped him put it on. She also quickly put on her clothes. Your technique is very good. The massage is very comfortable. On the way to the main hall, Yu Qianqiu suddenly said with a smile. How many people could enjoy having a bath with a demon king at the end of the crossing calamity stage and having him give him a massage? Just thinking about it made him feel good. It is my blessing to be able to serve Sir. If Sir likes it, you can come often. I can't ask for more. Miss Mu also smiled. If she could have a good relationship with Bai Chongqun's disciple, there was naturally no need to mention the benefits in the future. Haha, I'm really afraid that I can't help but come often. I can't ask for more. The two of them went to the main hall with smiles on their faces. As soon as they came in, Yu Qianqiu's face darkened. He saw the peach blossom demon kneeling there. A beautiful woman wrapped in green muslin in the hall saw that Yu Qianqiu's expression was not good. She stole a glance at Miss Mu, who smiled slightly. She immediately knelt down and said, Yu Yan pays respect to Sir. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her coldly and raised his hand to signal her to get up. He walked straight to Peach Blossom and sneered, Peach Blossom, do you still recognize me? How could Peach Blossom not recognize him? She did not know why she was caught and brought here. She was in a panic. Now that she saw him walking out with the Demon King and the Ghost King kneeling down to greet him, she immediately realized that she had made a big mistake. She knelt down and kowtowed repeatedly, I know I was wrong, I know I was wrong. I saved you, but you left me and ran away secretly. Hey, I hate ungrateful people the most in my life. Get up. It's useless to bow again. Yu Qianqiu stared at her and said. Peach Blossom hugged his leg and begged bitterly. Sir, forgive me this time. I won't dare to do it again. I asked you to get up, didn't you hear me? Yu Qianqiu's voice was very cold. Peach Blossom stood up shakily. Tears were already flowing down her face. She shook her head and cried, I've been cultivating for thousands of years. I transformed into a human form and was alone. I didn't know Sir's ability at that time. When I saw Tang Pa, I was really scared. Her voice stopped abruptly. Yu Qianqiu suddenly poked her chest with both hands. Peach Blossom opened her mouth wide and her eyes bulged. Soon, her eyes shrunk deeply, and smoke began to come out of her 7 orifices. Then, the skin all over her body rapidly shrank. Suddenly, a blue flame emerged from her body, and she disappeared without a trace in an instant. You have eyes but failed to see the situation clearly. Since you can't see the situation clearly, why do you still transform into a human form and continue to be a 1,000-year-old peach tree? Yu Qianqiu opened his 5 fingers indifferently and sucked the blue flame back into his palm. Chapter 303. The thick pink carpet was not damaged at all, but there was a pile of ashes. It was hard to believe that such a powerful flame could burn on the carpet without burning it. It could be seen that Yu Qianqiu's ability to control flames had reached an exquisite level. Only Yu Qianqiu himself knew the secret. It was said that playing with fire would cause one to be burned, but he was able to control it freely. The Demon King, Miss Mu, was a little better. She had already seen the fate of Tang Pa and her husband. But the Ghost King, Yu Yan, was a little creeped out. Yu Qianqiu had turned the demoness into ashes with a gentle point of his finger. She thought that she could easily kill the demoness, but it was absolutely impossible for her to turn a person's bones into ashes with a flick of her finger. In particular, the aura emitted by the blue flame was extremely young. Without even trying, she already knew that it could restrain her. The disciple of the torturer was indeed extraordinary. The way he killed without batting an eye was very similar to the style of a torturer. Yu Yan looked at Yu Qianqiu with more and more respect. Yu Qianqiu glanced at Yu Yan, who was standing with her hands behind her back. Although he hated ungrateful people, but to kill a peach blossom here was more or less like killing the chicken to warn the monkey. He wanted to show the female Ghost King that he, the disciple of the torture envoy, was not someone to be trifled with. He walked unceremoniously to the chair in the middle of the main hall and sat down. Looking at the 2 people standing below, he said, Since the Demon King and the Ghost King are both here, I will say what I want to say. I have something to ask of you this time. I need a batch of spirit stones. I don't know how many you can give me. Miss Moo smiled and said, the spirit stones have been prepared. Why did Mr. come here in person? Yu Qianqiu was startled and said, what? Did you know I was coming to collect spirit stones? Miss Moo and Yu Yan looked at each other. The former asked doubtfully. When Heli was still here, he had set a rule. Did Mr. not know? I don't know what rule. Lady Moo explained, the demon realm is divided into 300 territories, and each territory is controlled by a demon and a ghost. Therefore, Healy made a rule that each territory needs to pay 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones every month. At the beginning of every month, the rulers of the 300 territories will send people to deliver the spirit stones to the 1,000 Miles Lake, and Healy will take them all. There is no need for you to go door to door and collect them. What? Yu Qianqiu exclaimed. Each territory only needs to pay 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones every month? He still had some words in his heart. Of Mr. Are you trying to fool me? Just a single piece of land is already frighteningly large. Only you guys can afford to fork out 10,000 a month. Of the territory of the demon realm was already, but it was 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones every month. It's not inappropriate, it's just that. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his chin and hesitated for a moment before saying, isn't it a little too little to pay 10,000 high-grade spirit stones per month for each territory? Mr. Too of the rule? In that case, how much do you think is appropriate? Well, Yu Qianqiu thought to himself. With 300 territories, 10,000 yuan per month was indeed too little. In a year, it would only be a total of 30 million yuan. It was not even as good as the 2 7-star blood orchids that he sold. If it was increased by 100 times, it would be more than 3 billion yuan in a year. That would be a great profit. After thinking for a while, he said, what do you think? How about 1 million per month from each territory? What? 1 million? Miss Moo and Yu Yan exclaimed in unison, their faces full of disbelief. Yu Qianqiu's face darkened as he snorted coldly. What? Is 1 million a lot? There are indeed too many. I reckon that most of the territories won't be able to be handed over. Lady Moo shook her head and said with a wry smile, Sir, you may not know this, but spirit stones are the rarest thing in the demon ghost territory. Just like our territory, it's difficult to gather 1 million upper-grade spirit stones in a year. Sir, you want us to hand over 1 million upper-grade spirit stones every month. It's not that we don't want to, but we can't. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and asked suspiciously, is the demon ghost territory so poor? In his impression, the demon ghost territory was not only rich in all kinds of rare spirit grasses, but there should also be a lot of spirit stones. In the past, he not only got a lot of top-grade spirit stones in the demon ghost territory, but he even got some divine-grade spirit stones. He was too lazy to dig up those upper-grade spirit stones. How could a demon king not even have 1 million upper-grade spirit stones every month? Lady Moo smiled bitterly and said, compared to the human world, the demon ghost territory is indeed very poor. The same demon cultivators on the same cultivation level spend more time in the demon ghost territory than in the human world, and even spend several times more time. Fortunately, the spiritual qi in the demon ghost territory is far more abundant than in the human world. This time, Yu Qianqiu was a little depressed. He believed that the two women did not have the courage to lie to him. It seemed that his plan to get rich was ruined. He asked with a little unwillingness, could every territory be so poor? Aren't there any rich ones? That might not be the case. Territories with good luck might discover new mines that have yet to be excavated, but the chances are very small. After all, the demon ghost territory has existed for so many years. Furthermore, the ratio of cultivation is far greater than in the human world. Even if a new mine is excavated, the share is also very large. Therefore, there are very few undiscovered spirit stone mines. Most of the territories are searching for missing spirit stones in some old mines. Lady Moo explained. It seemed like it was purely a coincidence that they found the spirit stone mine back then. Yu Qianqiu sat there in silence. Right now, he was very concerned about the tens of millions of upper-grade spirit stones that were swallowed by the Wu clan. After a long time, he said helplessly, since that is the case, let's follow the old rules. Looking at the sky outside, it was already slightly bright. He reckoned that another day had passed, and he still had to rush back to farm. There were still a few days before the start of the month, and the spirit stones for the deficient flame mystic fruit couldn't be cut off. It seemed like he had to use his capital to pay for a few more days. Forget it. Even if it was less, there would still be 36 million spirit stones in a year. After deducting the amount that was used up, he could still earn around 30 million spirit stones. He could only comfort himself like this. He stood up listlessly and waved his hand. That will be all. I still have something to do and have to rush back. He was in a low mood, but he didn't think about it. How many sects could earn 30 million spirit stones in a year even in the human world? He should be content with what he had. However, he was used to seeing a lot of money, and he couldn't lift his spirits with less money. Mr. Lady Mu walked over and bowed. I just received a message. A few demon kings and ghost king in the nearby territories heard that Mr. is here and are rushing over at top speed. They wish to pay their respects to Mr. Some of the territories even prepared a greeting gift for Mr. Would Mr. like to wait a little longer? Yu Qianqiu took a glance at her and thought, damn it. She was so poor that she couldn't even afford spirit stones. How could she possibly have a greeting gift? What else could the demon domain have besides spirit herbs? When he thought of spirit herbs, he was slightly taken aback. He reached for the Pill Grandmaster's Pill Recipe Jade Archive and took out a blank Jade Archive. He spent some time copying the spirit herbs that he didn't have on the Jade Archive and handed it to Lady Mu. There are some drawings of spirit herbs in here. You can make a few copies and pass them to the other demon kings and ghost king. Tell them to help me collect some when they have time. As for the greeting gifts, keep them for me. Give them to me when the opportunity arises. Lady Mu took the Jade Archive and asked in surprise, Mister, do you know alchemy? What's so strange about that? Yu Qianqiu waved his hand weakly. I'll take my leave first. He didn't know that almost no one in the demon domain knew alchemy. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many rare spirit herbs left uncollected in the demon domain. Lady Mu glanced at Yu Yan and bowed. I'm afraid you might run into someone as blind as old Monster Tang. We'll see you off, mister. There's no need. Yu Qianqiu walked out of the hall alone. With his back facing the two women, he waved his hand and said, I'm not in a good mood. If there are any more blind fools, I won't waste my breath on them. I'll kill every one of them I see. Then he unsheathed his long sword and carried him away into the sky. Chapter 304. After returning to Shuntian Island, Yu Qianqiu remembered that he had forgotten to ask where the spirit stones could be obtained at the 1,000-mile lake. There was no need to go back and ask. Although a small silver ball had been secretly placed in Miss Mu's village, with Bai Chongqun around, he did not dare to play the trick of suddenly disappearing and reappearing, so he could only wait until that day. In the following days, in addition to taking care of the deficient flame-profound fruit, Yu Qianqiu also paid his respects to Bai Chongqun every morning and evening. The old man sat there cross-legged without even opening his eyes. He only let out a soft hum, indicating that he understood. In fact, Bai Chongqun did not restrict his freedom at all. As long as he served the deficient flame-profound fruit well, he could play however he wanted and go wherever he wanted. However, he still did not dare to leave the demon domain. After all, he had not agreed to leave the demon domain. The surrounding houses, where Healy used to live, now belonged to him, so he often wandered by Chongqun's door, looking for an opportunity to strike up a conversation. However, Bai Chongqun was like an old monk in meditation, sitting there without moving. Yu Qianqiu was anxious. Since he had already taken him as his master, he had to get some real things out of the old man's mouth. For example, the old man's cultivation method was what he coveted the most. Just think, more than 2,000 years ago, when the old man had not yet reached the soul formation stage, none of the top masters in the cultivation world could exchange more than 3 moves with him. Furthermore, he had the ability to split a mountain with his sword. Any one of them would be enough for him to show off. Taking a step back, he could also give one of the spiritual treasures of the 4 families that he had seen last time. However, Bai Chongqun had been sitting there, and he did not dare to disturb him except for the excuse of paying his respects. At the beginning of the month, he once again went to Lady Mu's mountain stronghold with his sword. When she found out that he came because he didn't know the location of the Spirit Stones collection, Lady Mu told him the location with a strange expression on her face. Then, she helped him bathe together. He lay in the bath and made a decision. He asked Lady Mu to pass on the message that the place to collect spirit stones would be changed to this mountain stronghold. Miss Mu was naturally happy about this. It was definitely a good thing to be in contact with the disciples of the punishment enforcer. While putting on his clothes, Yu Qianqiu asked, "Didn't you say last time that someone was going to give me a gift? Have you delivered it yet?" Miss Mu, who was naked but was helping him put on his clothes, smiled and said, "They said there's no need to trouble me. When I see you, I'll give it to you personally." "Are they afraid that you'll keep their things?" Yu Qianqiu asked. "That's not it. Even if they wanted me to stop them, they would know that I wouldn't dare to do so." "He probably wants to meet you and express his sincerity," Lady Mu said with a smile. "Problem." Yu Qianqiu snorted. He could guess what those demons and ghosts were thinking. They just wanted to get acquainted with the disciplinary envoy's disciple. After thinking about it, he decided to satisfy them, so he said, "Miss Mu, send a message to those who want to see me. Tell them to wait for me here at the beginning of next month." Lady Mu, who was dressing herself, smiled and said, "With your words, my place will be lively. I reckon that the 300 demon kings and the 300 ghost king will all rush here." As he spoke, he suddenly frowned and said, "Mister, won't this cause too much of a commotion? What if the torture enforcer is unhappy? Damn it! It's better if he's unhappy. I can't even find a chance to talk to him. It's best if he can find me." Yu Qianqiu's eyes flickered, and he waved his hand and said, "It's fine. If there's anything, just push it to me. Just say that I was the one who called for them." Speaking of all the demon kings and ghost king coming here, Yu Qianqiu thought of Yu Ji, who was good at playing tricks. He didn't know if she would still come after her husband died. She probably would. Understood. Lady Mu looked at him meaningfully. If it was the Li He of the past, he would definitely be very careful and would never dare to say something like this. Lady Mu had already sent someone to fetch the spirit stones that Yu Qianqiu wanted from the 1,000 Miles Lake. Yu Qianqiu tossed the spirit stones into his storage pouch and rushed back to Obedient Island. He found that Bai Chongqun was still sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, meditating. He didn't know how long Bai Chongqun was going to sit there. After wandering around for a few days, Miao Yi grew impatient, so he gave up on the idea of wandering around Miao Yi's doorstep. He took out a jade archive and ran to the edge of the island to study it. Recorded on it were the orbits of the star atlas of the 4 directions. Since he had nothing better to do, and it wasn't like he could steal it, he might as well see if he could come up with something similar to the Starflame fire technique. In the past, he had guessed that the Star Atlas contained 5 types of elemental magic arts, but he was still groping for the right direction, so he didn't know if it was possible. Bai Chongqun didn't even need to open his eyes to know that Yu Qianqiu had been wandering around during this period of time. With his level of cultivation, not even an ant crawling on the island could hide from him. Miao Yi was also curious about Yu Qianqiu's actions. During the day, this kid would wander around blindly after finishing his work. When he had nothing to do, he would catch a few fish and roast them. Occasionally, he would catch some birds and beasts to roast, and would even ask if Miao Yi wanted to eat them. Miao Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so Miao Yi decided to ignore him. Furthermore, the wine in his storage pouch seemed to be inexhaustible, and he used it as water to quench his thirst. At night, as soon as the sky turned dark, Miao Yi would cover his head and sleep soundly, snoring loudly until dawn. Once he got up, he would run to the edge of the lake and make some strange movements with his buttocks in the air. Then, he would strip naked and dive into the water to swim. He would catch a fish for breakfast, and when he was full, he would go to work in the garden of the deficient flame profound fruit. Just like this, Miao Yi had never seen him cultivate. If everyone was like him, then there would be no need for him to cultivate. Miao Yi really didn't know how he was able to reach the late core formation stage at such a young age. Actually, Bai Chongqun didn't know that Yu Qianqiu himself didn't want to be idle like this. The key was that ever since he absorbed the azure fire, the core in his dantian seemed to have a spiritual nature, and could refine spiritual qi to cultivate. If he were to sit down and painstakingly cultivate, it would be faster to let nature take its course. In fact, he only needed to take out a spirit stone from time to time and absorb spiritual qi. Since it was already like this, Was there still a need for him to sit there and cultivate? In addition, he didn't dare to steal it, so he naturally had nothing better to do. Therefore, in the morning, he would do calisthenics, swim, and make some snacks. Otherwise, Big Brother would be lonely. Which star chart of the 4 directions should he study first? Yu Qianqiu sat by the lake, shaking his head as he pondered. His gaze fell upon the surface of the lake, and he paused for a moment. In his previous life, the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were located in the north. If his guess was correct, the northern star chart should be related to water. With such a large lake here, it was just the right time to verify his conjecture. Out of boredom, he immediately found a way to pass the time. He immersed his divine sense into the northern star chart recorded in the Jade Archive, and calmed his body and mind as he studied the changing trajectories of the star chart. As he sat there, he lost track of time. The moon rose, the moon set, and the stars sank. In the blink of an eye, it was dawn of the next day, yet he was still sitting there in the same position. Usually, he would work in the morning, but even when the sun was high in the sky, he was still sitting there with his eyes closed, deep in thought. He had already entered a certain state. This strange phenomenon immediately attracted Bai Changchun's attention. Sitting cross-legged in the room, Bai Changchun finally opened his eyes, revealing an expression of disbelief. He abruptly disappeared from where he was, and soundlessly reappeared in front of Yu Qianqiu. His eyes shone brightly as he sized him up. With his eyes closed, Yu Qianqiu's expression kept changing. Sometimes he would smile foolishly like a child, sometimes he would furrow his brows in deep thought, and sometimes his brows would relax and he would nod slightly, as if he had understood something. Bai Changchun's expression was extremely shocked. He had cultivated for more than 2,000 years, and his knowledge was vast. The Yu Qianqiu in front of him had obviously comprehended something, and entered a state of enlightenment. For cultivators, this was definitely something that could only be encountered by chance. Once they comprehended it, they would benefit for the rest of their lives. Normally, cultivators with low comprehension would find it very difficult to enter this state. Usually, only cultivators with extremely high talent would be able to enter this state. For example, he himself was considered one of the most talented cultivators in the same generation. When he broke through to the soul formation stage at the age of 300, he entered a state of enlightenment. After another 300 years, he broke through to the middle stage from the early stage of soul formation, and after another 500 years, this state of enlightenment appeared again, helping him break through to the late stage of soul formation. However, after reaching the late stage of soul formation, after more than 1,000 years, this state of enlightenment that he yearned for never appeared again. As his lifespan was nearing its end, he had no choice but to search for external methods. He wanted to take the risk of entering the Eastern Holy Land to find a method to break through and ascend. He broke through to the soul formation stage at the age of 300, and reached the middle stage at the age of 600. In total, it took him 1,100 years to reach the late stage of soul formation. Among his peers, his talent was definitely at the top of the best. At the same time, he understood that this was inseparable from his bitter cultivation. However, this young man in front of him, who was always fooling around and idling around, had actually entered a state of enlightenment. His talent was already considered high, but he only had this opportunity when he was 300 years old. But how old was this kid? Was it talent or the will of the heavens? How was this possible? He had never heard of it before. Bai Changchun shook his head and smiled bitterly. His gaze fell on the Jade Archive in Yu Qianqiu's hand. He thought to himself, could it be that there's something strange about this Jade Archive? He raised his hand, wanting to take it for a closer look. However, just as he raised his hand, he put it down again and shook his head slightly. If it had nothing to do with this Jade Archive, he would definitely wake Yu Qianqiu up from this state of enlightenment if he took the Jade Archive. He might even ruin the one and only opportunity in his life. It was difficult to seek for oneself, but it was also impossible to destroy others. This was the will of the heavens. This was the will of the heavens. He could not go against the will of the heavens. Bai Changchun raised his head to look at the horizon and sighed softly. He thought of the phrase he often said, if the heavens have feelings. However, it had been a long time since the heavens' favor had descended upon him. Now, it had descended upon the disciple he had accepted. Fate, Was this the will of the heavens? You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.